That's right. If you go eventually far enough, we'd like to go back to the future. But welcome, misfits, one and all, to this episode of Talk Skeptic to Me, Evolution and Creation with Cindi Lincoln. That's right, where tonight we are taking a paneled approach, a conversation with Bree and Rubiks and Cindi Lincoln, as well as the two schmucks, James W. and myself, A.V. Newman. So won't you join us as we have a good time?
Of Gizmo.
That's right, our real producer. As we have a good time worth evolving into our creation. That's right, everyone. I thank you for joining us out there on the intertubes. If you're feeling oh so fancy, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, because then you'll gain access to that bell icon, which when bung set to all, will send you reminders to see our premieres, like all of our new shows, Impromptu Debate You, Skeptic on the Street, The Skeptic Show, all coming out, as well as our live shows like this our Talk Skeptic to Me, so much. The show where those with expertise or wisdom in these topics come together so that we can figure out what's going on. We also want to send love out there, first of all, to everyone in the live chat. Thank you so very much. What is up, Answers in Atheism? What is up, X Music? Winston's mom, James Wolfe. I know. What's up, Speed of Sound? Boom, boom.
Out there.
Winston's mom, Sage, Ohio, Bree, woo.
James Wolfe.
Rubiks. We have all of them. In fact, I should really get their channels in the description below, which I will do. But you should also be checking out the fantastic and lovely Cindi Lincoln's channel, which we have in the description below. She has many fantastic conversations about theology, philosophy, and all sorts of different topics. But we also want to send out a shout out to all of our supporters out there, everyone who has sent in super chats, everyone who has joined Shadow membership with, we can't help to say, our evolving badge system that may be on topic tonight. So you can hit that big join button there, as well as there. The best way to help support us, which is by heading over to patreon.com/Amy Newman, including some fantastic supporters like Oz from the Atheist Network Group. What's up, Oz? YouTube.com/The Atheist Network Group, as well as Jena and Shane the Skeptic. So many Biddy Buddha. Grumpy Old Cuss. Woo! Diana Smith. Pat
Diana, thank you, Diana.
Dale Pascal, Dave Gar,
thank you, Dale.
Scott Duke,
Dave Gar,
Rejos, Rachel Hallway.
Thanks so much, Rejos.
Senator Cato,
wonderful Rachel.
James Wolfe,
thanks, Cato. Out there in chat.
Ian Davenport, and
thanks, Ian.
Last but certainly not least, Matt Deeg, the universe, the galaxy.
Thanks, Matt.
And eventually in the planet in your hands. And what was that? I was going to say, and feel free to talk as much as you want. We just blabber on. But sending so much love to all of our supporters.
Thank you, guys.
As well as all of our subscribers, our viewers, and people like you. And very quickly, Cindi, if you just would like to say hello, not maybe on the topic, but just if you'd like to say anything, hi, or just your channel, and then we're going to go into opening statements. We're actually we're going to get Bree, Rubiks, and then we're going to bring Cindi as her opening statement on whatever she wants to say about the topic.
Hi, sweetheart. Did you just switch something so
Welcome
that I
back,
can
Cindi.
comment? Hi,
so
James.
that you can comment? Sure.
Yeah, because I saw the screen change. I was unable to respond to some of the comments. I don't know how to comment.
Oh, so what it is that it might not have been able to when it's maybe live, but there is, at least on my end, a whole bunch of comments on the right side. You do have to maybe be logged in on a StreamYard account. Maybe that's why.
Oh, that's
why.
Well, I'll just answer it. I'll just answer it.
But I'll also, if you would like, actually, I'm also going to send in chat. If you mute it, but just keep the chat in there. This is where we are running. I'm sending just Cindi the link to our YouTube at youtube.com/Amy Newman. And you will be able to see the whole chat. And oh my, a $2 super chat already from Big Bad Mama. Thank you so very much. And she is sending total love and support to Cindi. Woo-hoo. Thank you so
very
much.
Big Bad Mama. I just noticed you did a video about me and Sal, and I haven't watched it yet, but I want to. Did you read it?
I think that means James and I have to check it out now. But thank you so very much, Big Bad Mama. Welcome on board. Glad to have you with us. Thank you so very much for the love and support, and we are sending it right back. Especially thank you for supporting the love from Cindi. What is up, Bitter Truth? KCA, everyone out there. I'll just say I do in there. Oh my. Let's see. More aimed at Rachel, but Blaster Master, all of those. Randolph Richardson, that's right. And okay, I think Cindi, welcome on board. Are you ready to we'll let the other two people go next, and then we'll bring you back on for your opening statement on the topic?
Yep.
All right, sounds great. Then, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between out there, we are going into our Talk Skeptic to Me on evolution and creationism. We do have our special guest host with us, Cindi Lincoln. However, we have two fantastic other guests to bring on board with us, which is Bree and Rubiks. Before we go into the open panel on it, we are having fun. In fact, some would say we are even Talk Skeptic to Me. What is up, Bumble? It is lovely to have you here with us. We are Talk Skeptic to us on evolution and creationism. We're here with the fantastic Cindi, yourself, and Rubiks. But really, Bree, I want to know, what are your thoughts on the subject, and of course, where people check you out.
Wow. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My screen was lagging. Sorry. I should have a better internet connection next week. Right now, I'm running off of crappy Wi-Fi. But good evening, everybody. And can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm hearing like an echo. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that or not. But
I'm not.
I'm not. You're coming.
You may, if you have the stream open. By accident, even by accident, it'll go live.
Yeah, let me see.
And we're just sending love out there. I see Carol the Atheist. Sending
KCA
love
Randy's out there.
To KCA. Randolph, in a week, we're going to be having our fantastic stream with Convincing Us.
Okay, I'm seeing if I can close some stuff here. I don't know what's going on. Sorry. Oh, yeah, the Discord. It's open in the Discord, girl.
Oh,
there we go.
Gotcha.
Like, where's it coming from? I had it open because the link was shared out there. It was
That's okay.
Anyway.
In fact, well, actually, I got you one more time. In fact, watch this. Bumble free, welcome to Talk Skeptic.
Welcome
To
back.
Me. We are in fact talking evolution and creationism. We are here with Cindi Lincoln as well as our guest. We have Rubiks and yourself on board. How are you doing?
Hi.
Where can people find you out on the interwebs? And what are your thoughts about the topic?
Hi, I'm Bree from Hive Science, and I can be found at Hive Science on YouTube, Hive Science on Instagram, Hive Science on so many platforms. So if you look up Hive Science, if you see the name Hive Science, there's a good chance that it's me. So keep that in mind if you see me around. I'm most active on Twitter. I do a lot of animal IDs, which is people send me pictures of usually bugs, but other things too, and I identify them to help the individual know, especially if it's a spider or something like that, whether it's going to be dangerous and things like that. That's what I really enjoy doing. So I also talk about evolution and phylogeny. Now, phylogeny is the classification of different organisms. So that is the topic that's near and dear to my heart. I spent my youth doing surveys for the Department of Conservation in Missouri. So I've done my fair share of schematic surveys of ecosystems, and that really did bolster my understanding of ecologies and helped me to sort of pair that up with this talk on evolution, because we hear a lot of talk about evolution as it occurs in biology, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about how it impacts and preserves ecologies as well. And that's what I want to talk about today. I will dabble into nested cladistics, but I'm going to leave that a lot of that to Rubrik, because I know that they have a lot to say about primates and things of that nature. So, and Amy asked for cats, so I am going to talk just a little bit about cats and the way that they evolve. So, how long do I have here?
As much as you would like.
Okay, good. Okay, so when it comes to the fossil record, and a lot of people say, now that we do phylogeny, we don't need to worry about the fossil record. And that may be true for individual organisms and trying to classify them into groups, because we can see the genetic relationship between two extant clades without having to have a fossil common ancestor between them. We can see it in their genes. That animal still exists in the genetics of its ancestors, because you never outgrow that. You never outgrow your ancestry. So there are genes in your body that you share in common with all primates, all mammals, all tetrapods, all chordates, and so forth, that still are in use today. That you like, for a good example, chordates. You have all the genes to build that spinal column to help send nerve signals down to your body. That's a chordate specialty that you have the same genetics for as anything else that has a backbone. From a fish to a crocodile to a chimpanzee, that all those genes that are doing that work have the same root, same foundation on them. So we don't need necessarily the fossil record in order to expound upon genetic relationships between animals. But Cindi, as I understand it, is a young Earth creationist, and this is where I get hung up on because the ecologies that are preserved in the fossil record are different than just the organisms. The ecologies tell us what the environment was like. So when we see an environment like a forest in the fossil record, especially when there's been a couple of biome changes on top of that, and we know that it takes this much time for old growth forests to take hold in an environment, and this much of previous second growth forest has to be decayed and in the soil, and we get that we have that preserved as well. A certain level of nutrients from second growth forest have to be in the soil for the old growth forest, and we build these timetables on that. So it's not just that we depend on geology in the sense that, hey, these are different levels. It's how long it takes for those specific kind of levels to form. Like we see the Carboniferous is a good time period. We see heavy forest decay. And there were organisms that weren't quite as efficient at breaking down the more denser parts of the organisms. That's what we get. The plants that were decaying, the denser parts of them. There were no. Well, later on there were more organisms, but not before the layers and layers that raised allowed the nutrients for the plants to just grow out of their dead compatriots until they raised the oxygen level so high that it collapsed. And we see all this based on ecologies and not specifically on the fossil records, by what kind of organisms living in what areas together at what time, how were they coexisting, what were they doing to the environment, how they were changing it. We can see all that. We can see the patterns of forest, we can see the patterns of prairie land, we can see the patterns of marine environments, and we can see where they change and shift between one another. And we know how long it takes for those ecological changes to take place because we see them in real time. There's changes too, especially, I mean, it's getting a little bit rapider now, but we can see biomes shifting from one to another, and we can see how the organisms that live in that biome will respond. So we have a picture of that in real time. We know how long, for instance, it takes for, like I said, an old growth forest and it takes an old decay. And we know how long it takes for it to decay in the water compared to how long it takes for it to decay on land. There's so many factors that come into this from an ecological standpoint that having a time frame of less than 10,000 years just can't explain all these layers of biomes that pile on top of each other and are preserved in this record with things like pollen and that's what I like to say about it. It can be fit in these different ecological layers, and I would love to hear what their apologetics are on that, because I have never heard an answer to that. And I'm still, of course, eager to talk to some creationists about rafting dispersal, but I'll save that for another day. And I'm going to yield any other time, so Rubik can get some words in.
Woo-hoo! Thank you so very much, Bumblebee. Welcome on board. And with that, we are going to get Rubiks in here for their opening statement before we go to our headliner, Cindi Lincoln. But with that, let's get Rubiks in here. We are Talk Skeptic to me on evolution and creationism. We are having fun. Woohoo! What is up, Rubiks? It's fantastic to have you on board with us. And what we want to know is if there's anywhere that you're out there on the interwebs, but most importantly, what are your thoughts about the topic?
So, if you anything that says Rubik's Cubed is most likely me. There's one person that uses that. So that's my Twitch. I don't stream there very often. If you follow me there, you'll be disappointed. I maybe stream once or twice a year, if that. But you're free to follow me if you really want. My background is in anthropology. My undergraduate degree, I did a lot of focus on bioanthropology, and there's a lot of misconceptions of what evolution really says, and what a lot of religious people think it means. All of a sudden, a monkey gives birth to a human. Nowhere in evolution, in the evolutionary theory, does it say that happens. It's very small, gradual change over time, and really, depending on your interpretation of the Bible, it's not mutually exclusive. Science and religion can coexist. And I'm really bad at opening statements, so that's about all I have, I guess. I'm bad at opening statements.
That's pretty good, Rubiks.
Like, if you don't ask me a question, I can answer it, but I have a hard time accessing my memory just to talk.
Actually, that was great, I thought.
Yeah,
Great,
thank you so very much.
yeah.
It's good to have you on board. And with
Yes.
that, we are going to head to our headliner. We are going to give Cindi Lincoln her opening statement, and then we are going to get the whole panel in for a conversation. But we are Talk Skeptic to me, and we are talking evolution and creation. Woo!
They had no.
That's okay. Welcome. We're sending love out there. Cindi, it is lovely to have you on board with us on Talk Skeptic to me as we are talking evolution and creation. It is great to have you here as our special guest host. I want to keep on saying that Cindy's link is in the description. We're going to exactly. It's great to have you back. We're going to put it on screen in a second. Can I ask, do you have a shorthand like a like youtube.com/Cindi Lincoln or something like that?
It's just Cindi Lincoln YouTube.
Cindi
It's
Lincoln
just with
YouTube.
an I. It's
Gotcha.
CINDI. And it is Abraham Lincoln. Somebody asked in the chat, are you related to Abraham? And he didn't have any living descendants. So we're related from like his uncle or something like that. But yes, he was my hero from a very young age, Honest Abe.
And I would love to hear, and please take all the time that you would like, your thoughts about evolution, creationism, anything that they talked about tonight. The floor is all yours.
Well, originally you wanted me to go first, and I wanted them to go first so I could respond, but now I'm overwhelmed. So
I'm sorry.
I'll give it a try. So basically, I would like to contend that creationism is scientific, that we do just as much science in terms of observing, testing, thinking. It's not just blind faith. And so I look forward to talking more about that. And Rubiks said something about we think that a monkey will suddenly give birth to a human. We don't think that. We realize that you're promoting gradual changes over time. However, we don't think that's any more likely. You can't give birth to like a part human the way we see the world, what we see in real time. And then Bree said something about environments in the fossil record, not just the fossils themselves, but the environments they're preserved in, being either forest or plains, etc. And any fossil is only preserved because it's buried in sediment and water and minerals. It was buried in water. It requires water to make a fossil. So it requires mud, minerals, and water. And so you're not going to have fossils forming in a forest. When an animal dies in the forest, it's going to decompose, get eaten by bugs, etc. The only way you can preserve like the hair and the detail that you get in some of the fossils is if it's rapidly buried before it can be decomposed.
Yeah, the bones scattered today.
Before the predators will scatter the bones, the insects will eat it. And so, of course, I know you guys think this is nutty, but we think that the biblical flood is a real point in history.
It is.
And let's see, what other point did Bree make? Old growth forests requiring time. That's an interesting concept. because we believe that God made things, Adam and Eve, for example, were not created as babies. They were created with the appearance of, being at the prime of their life.
Or mature.
And so same with the trees. The trees would have looked old growth and been producing fruit at the time they were created. And if you think about it, what came first, the seed or the tree?
It's kind of like the chicken or the egg.
The chicken or the egg, yeah. Somebody told me they had an answer for that, but I haven't heard one that satisfies me. The chicken had to come first because the egg will not live without its mom to sit on it, which means you have complexity instantly, pre-thought out, not a random amalgamation of minerals and chemicals, but
When God created
a conceived creature.
it was already full grown mature. When God created the earth.
I have my sweet girlfriend over here to give me a cheerleading. Anyway, so I think that's all. Your turn.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, Cindi. That is right. I just want to send one more love out there. Thank you for joining us tonight. Her link is not only on the screen, but we sent it into chat. And with that, we are actually going to be moving into our open panel discussion. Because we are Talk Skepticing to me on evolution and creation. We are here with Bumblebee, Rubiks, and Cindi Lincoln, and we are going to have some fun. Ha ha, da da da.
Somebody in the chat said the egg came first.
Yeah, it did. I can explain. For me to explain? So,
Yes, I want you to explain, but can I just say scientifically, you can take an egg and place it anywhere on the earth. Okay, let's do a scientific experiment. Put the egg in the forest, put the egg in the desert, put the egg in the ocean, put the egg anywhere. It will die without a mom.
That's not true at all. Most animals just leave their eggs. They don't sit on them. They just bury them, or even some insects put them on the bottom of leaves. Octopuses just leave them floating sometimes.
Well, that's true of non-chickens. You are right. You got me on that one.
Yeah, so that's my point, is that eggs as a process of incubating your young has been around for a long time. Since definitely since the early Paleozoic that we can see. The time in our old Earth timetable that's divided into three parts. You have the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. So Paleo means old, Meso means middle, and so forth. So eggs, we see them appearing in the fossil record sometime in the Paleozoic. Yeah, it's speculated they could be even older than that. That process of incubating young, but we know that that organisms started producing eggs at that point in time. So well before chickens evolved, because modern birds are a product of the Cenozoic. Well, all the aves birds that we have today. There were birds in the Mesozoic, especially in the Cretaceous. They really started to diversify, but the modern birds like chickens and galliforms and that sort of fowl are a product of the Cenozoic, and we had birds laying eggs for millions of years before chickens evolved. We had organisms just laying eggs for close to 1 billion years, or close to 500 million years, or a little over 500 million years, I would say, somewhere in that between 500 million and 1 billion years. We've had organisms laying eggs.
And I'm going to let Cindi respond, but then Bree, before you respond to her, I'm going to read a super chat, but then you'll bring your point up right after. But Cindi, your response, you're all good.
Thank you, babe. I was just going to say two things. you're saying, Bree, that we had eggs being laid for millions of years, but it's not on point. What we're trying to say is what came first, the chicken or the egg, and the fact that there were eggs being laid doesn't say that the egg came first. How would you prove that just suddenly, without a mom, an egg just appears with the genetic code to make that creature? Like, a frog egg is different than a chicken egg, is different than a dinosaur egg. They have that genetic code for what they're going to make. So
Right.
did that
You
just
pass
come
it on
out
to
of
your
dust?
Well, you pass it on to your. So the difference between a chicken and the ancestor to a chicken is a line that we draw as humans. It's for our purposes of classification. Evolution and the ecology, that doesn't care about any of that, whether it's an artificial ecology or a. Sorry, Amy wanted to do a super chat.
Oh no, that's okay. I'm gonna let have Cindi the last sentence, so it's still all good.
Again, Bree, how does that prove that the egg came first? Did the egg just appear out of stardust or a prebiotic ocean?
I'll finish after Amy.
Exactly.
Amy does. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, though.
Thank you,
I
Bree.
actually love this. We're having a great conversation. Though the spice is real, we're sending love to the sinister porpoise. As she will tell you when you think of the sinister
She's
porpoise,
extremely
think of the
sinister.
sinister porpoise.
Oh.
Wow. But she's coming after with the spice. Cindi is wrong. Fossils can also be done with ash. What do you think, Cindi?
Ash is a cementing agent, yes, but you still need water to make it soak into the bones and the creature so that the bones and the creature become
look
a
at
rock.
the bones. I'm sorry, just
The bones. In fact, in my science center, okay, guys, this is really gross. There was a guy that was making corpses into marble using the minerals found in ash.
That sounds
I think
awesome.
That's not gross. I have literally looked into what it would take to have Kiri and Beale, so I'm there with you.
I'm also fairly sure that is one of the villains in Fear of the Walking Dead. But yes.
Let's go back to the egg stuff because I really like that topic. So,
but yes, well, I just want to say one more time, thank you so very much, Sinister Porpoise, for our love and
Sinister
support.
Porpoise
Thanks for
rocks.
sending love.
Woo!
And with that being said, Bumblebee, the floor is yours.
Okay, so what we just draw the line around and say is chicken, the gallus, where we say, okay, these are chickens. That's something we put in place. What gave birth to the first organism that had enough genetic variation from the previous population to be defined as chickens? Because evolution takes place in a population, not an individual. So these groups start producing specific genetic offsprings that compound different characteristics because of different environmental pressures, and they are accumulating these changes over time that eventually they are a different species from the parent population. Now that parent population, a species of that at some point was giving birth to very small changes as it moved into this other group, right? At what point we decided as humans that this is enough changes that we're going to call it a different species is our choice. That doesn't change the fact that each one of those organisms laid an egg that was, for all intents and purposes, because of the generic variability of the parent group, a distinct individual change that was the same, but they had changes in their genetics of the offspring, but were still of the same species as the parent, happened individually on each step of the progress as it moved into this new area with different environmental pressures to cause it to create what we call a chicken today.
Didn't you just say that the organism was making the eggs?
Yeah.
But I thought your position was that the egg came first.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's been eggs.
Either one, you've got complexity first, which requires an engineer, like a pre-plan. An egg contains so much stuff that is interdependent.
Ooh.
actually just as complex as a chicken. And it's got a DNA code, which is hugely complex. Are you
Mhm.
saying that just came to existence right away, or that the first egg maybe didn't make a creature, it made like a partial creature?
Well, the first eggs were much more simple. They were it's basically amniote eggs, which are hard. Like, you get your hard shell on them, like chicken eggs, snake eggs, things like that, are a bit newer. The original eggs were in the water, and it was basically just a membrane with a yolk sac that the organism could feed on while it developed for just a short period of time. Early organisms probably didn't exhibit a lot of parental care, so they just leave those free floating in like a plankton form for these earliest eggs, and they would just bob around in the marine environment until the organism ate enough of the nutrients to break free and morph into or go through a morphological stage, because early organisms for the most part had different they would molt, and there'd be different forms of their morphology as they developed. But that's a whole nother topic, and it's quite an interesting route to go down, but we're not going to go down there today. I do want to give Rubik a chance to respond to some of Cindy's questions, though. I feel like I'm hogging the floor. So,
I
Bill, you got
actually
anything
just
to
drew a
say?
diagram up to kind of explain what you're saying.
Well,
Very basic diagram. It's a line from not chicken to chicken. It's backwards.
Well,
So
we love our lines on paper,
yes, parent A is chicken, and after many, many, many generations, it gradually but slowly becomes more similar to what we would consider to be a chicken. I'm not used to the backwards.
Now,
we're
where
not
we decide
talking-
to draw that line between each of those individuals is what we decide as
Yes,
our
it's-
species.
It takes
I
many,
also-
many thousands of generations.
just want to point out as a prop comic that from the amount of me needing a rubber chicken is kind of like right up here right now.
Right, as a comedian,
I don't have
as a
one.
comedian without a rubber chicken, you should be
I
ashamed,
know.
Amy.
I have a rubber shark puppet somewhere here.
Well,
Oh my.
Amy spent so much time choking the chicken.
I have a stuffed praying mantis.
That is adorable. I have a to kind of hold
that is
my
cool.
nerdy card, which I think you could appreciate.
Stuffed
Here's
mantis.
a stuffed tardigrade. Everyone likes water bears, right? Yeah.
tardigrade.
Yes, everyone loves tardigrades, right? They're like I like capybaras randomly, but
I
before
do
we
too.
I know they have the greatest
Everybody
vibe.
likes capybaras. Even
I-
crocodiles like capybaras.
But
They
to go
would-
on with, even within the Homo sapiens, there's been a change. So the first appearance of Homo sapiens was around 300,000 years ago, and around 160,000 years or so ago, there's a little bit of a physiological change between the original Homo sapiens and anatomically modern Homo sapiens. It includes a slightly larger brain case, a difference in digestive tract length. So the early Homo sapiens were mostly plants and nuts, but now we've moved. But at some point, we moved to more eating meat, so our digestive tract shortened over time. And we're still the same species, but there's like a distinct difference that we noticed about 160,000 years ago.
And Cindy, if you'd like, you can respond, but then Rubiks, before you have your response back, just going to send out another love for a super chat. But
No
Cindy,
worries.
if you'd like.
I want to stick on the egg thing because Rubiks showed the diagram about a non-chicken progressing along the line to a chicken. But to me, that doesn't answer, any kind of egg. If it's a not chicken egg, it still has a hugely complex DNA code to execute, to say, what am I going to make? Oops, sorry. All right.
It's okay. Now tea is done. We're all going to be serving it to here and in chat. No.
I don't mind random dancing, Cindy.
Talk
so
about
if you got
hell's
more music
bells.
just gonna pop up, I'm gonna
Hell's bells.
dance to it.
But we're gonna
So-
just also send hold on just one sec for Miles Gmail with $5
Thanks,
of
Miles.
love. We're just sending that right back. If you have a specific statement, question, or anything you want to say, feel free to read it out loud. But if not, if you're just sending love, then we are sending that love right back to you. Thank you so very much. It's you guys, gals, and everything that make this channel
You guys
even
keep the lights on.
possible. Exactly. And so, sending one more love, but Bumblebee, it's all you. It sounded like you had something on the tip of your tongue.
Oh, well, yeah, because we were talking about the complexity of an egg, and what we see as an egg, as a chicken egg today, is very complex. There's so many steps that go into developing the egg within the bird itself before it's even laid in the nest. It's incredible. I mean, it's is incredible in any regard as development, like of a human baby, of any kind of organism. It's an incredible process, and nowhere else is there any process like it in all the life of the world. So yes, I do agree that the way that animals reproduce is freaking incredible. You mentioned
But
seeds before
yeah.
too. It's the same. It's the same situation. It's incredible. But what we see as an egg today has, again, the earliest eggs it's starting as a membrane around the organism as it develops. We've come from that time, almost a billion years ago, to modern times. Has had all that time for each organism that reproduces to make slight modifications to how they produce those eggs in order for them to survive in the environment. Only the ones that are meeting those requirements to survive in this environment are passed down. So only the good ones make it through. Only the good processes of reproducing these eggs make it through. And each organism, the better it chances of its offsprings hatching from those eggs, the better chances offspring has of producing their own offspring, and so forth, with slight modifications to keep up and keep ahead and make sure that the organisms propagate. Because again, the ones that can't make it, they don't get to the finish line in second place. There's no option for that. They're done, out of the gene pool. So only the successful genetic offspring propagate forth with modifications to the way they're producing these eggs to help them compete and stay relevant in the genetic population. So all those changes over that almost billion-year time frame, we're looking at from simple gelatinous membrane to the hard-shelled eggs of an amniote that we see today.
We actually,
Wow.
I'll post a link in the chat. We have actually reproduced in the lab single cell to multicellular life. We've reproduced that in the lab in about 2
I
years.
will say, Rubiks, if you post it in chat and you're not a mod, it won't go through. But
No,
if
it's
you
in
just
our
post
private
your
chat.
name- Oh,
in
well, I was
private
going to
chat.
say, I was just going to make you a mod if you wanted. So, but that works too.
Yeah.
So I'll post it if you would like. But Cindy, if you would like to have a statement, and then we have another super chat.
You're on mute, Cindy.
Oh, thank you. I didn't have anything quite yet to say. Bree.
I kid. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Go ahead and talk to Rubik for a second.
Okay. You're saying that the egg as we know it today didn't come first because there was a less complex egg that came first that created a less complex creature, which evolved into a more complex creature and ultimately into eggs like we see today.
Yeah, it's a very, very slow, gradual process that takes a lot of time.
Well,
It's
I would
like-
say, like, you know how bacteria divide? Like, bacteria reproduce where there's a process where it separates itself into two cells and then, divides and reproduces that way. I think that's how it started, and then eventually evolved when you had sexual reproduction, and it found that it could, with a shell, it could survive in better environments, so it would separate from it, but maybe it had a time to gestate before. Yeah, very long, very slow, but it's the evolution of reproduction. But it begins with just cell division, which we see it happens in our cells all the time.
It's
Our
not
cells
something
still
you would
do that.
notice until you look at thousands upon thousands upon thousands of generations later. It's very, very slight. It's not like all of a sudden it's like this. It's after many thousands to millions of years and generations. And that requires
The
time.
story is reproduction. That's the root of all this. Is how did sexual reproduction evolve after asexual reproduction and the advantages that gave? I think Amy actually has some information about that, but maybe we'll save that for another time.
Oh, I'm back. Sorry, it was just my son. I didn't warn him I had this debate thing, or I don't think this isn't really a debate, but whatever. I didn't warn him, so he was calling me. So thank you. And where are we? Are we still? I didn't want to drag us backwards if we moved past the egg thing, but
we're still there.
James was saying that originally it wasn't reproduction via egg, but by cell division.
Yeah.
And that gradually developed into egg.
Yeah, like when it divided, the organism cells, wrapped in the membrane, and that early membrane is what later organisms as they
a shell.
I don't think there's any thing like that we know of that is half gelatinous and half membrane. I think it's one or the other.
There's still cells that divide and have that. When they divide the division, the new organism is wrapped in the membrane. Because think of it like they're splitting and there's an open wound, and it's the membrane is basically like a pussy scab over top of it in a way to make sure that it doesn't spill all its what is the someone in the side chat tell me the stuff inside the cell. It's been forever since I had like a basic bio class.
It all started off as a single cell that divided and reproduced itself over and over again until it became a lot of cells.
And I also just want to give out 2 super chats. It's one I think that Cindy's going to want to respond to. So we have $5, another super chat from the Sinister Porpoise. Thank you so very much, Sinister. Send that love right back. But they say complexity is an argument against a designer. Well-designed systems are no more complex than they need to be. Not a good argument. The spice is real, but the floor is yours, Cindy, if you'd like a response.
I think that's a logical fallacy. That complexity with interdependence means there was a planner. Somebody knew, hey, you're going to need a heart to pump the blood. You're going to need lungs to take in the oxygen. You're going to need a stomach to digest the food. You're going to need the food. You're going to need the environment. You're going to need the air to breathe. Complexity is a sign of a designer, an engineer, somebody who knew in advance what was going to be needed, and somebody who had the power to make that happen.
Out of curiosity, why couldn't God have led evolution?
He could have done it.
That last time.
Death is the hero of evolution.
He could have done it any way that he wanted to, but death is
the hero.
If you think about, people complain about God being mean. I can't think of a much meaner way an inefficient way to create than through millions of years of death and suffering and wrong mutations until you get it right. That's like a really lame, stupid God, first of all, but it's also mean.
I would argue that God is a villain of the Bible, if you really look at it. I would argue that.
I've heard people say that because are you considering like when he's ordering the execution of the Canaanites and that kind of thing?
even from Genesis.
Help me.
So, in the Genesis story, Adam and Eve are the first humans. They do not know it is wrong to disobey God. God already knows that they're going to disobey him. And because those two people made a mistake, all of humanity is sent to suffer for thousands of years until Jesus died on the cross, according to the Bible.
I will agree with you that it does seem unfair that one man's sin affects all of us. However, to say that they didn't know that they weren't supposed to disobey a God doesn't make sense, because he's told them clearly, if you eat of this, you're going to die.
They didn't know it was wrong. They didn't know what death was. They didn't know it was wrong to disobey God. They didn't know right from wrong until they ate
The
of the
tree
tree.
was the knowledge of good and evil. They didn't even
Well,
need
if
to
God
know they
said
needed to
that they're
look.
going to die,
But they didn't know
Sorry.
what death was, because death didn't exist.
that means he couldn't communicate. And I don't think that that's true.
And actually, before we go back into it, I just want to send one more love. Thank you so much, Sinister Porpoise, for all of the support and love that you sent back to us. It makes us able to keep on making more fun content, but also sending love to Dave Gar, woohoo,
Thanks, Dave
who
Gar.
is sending us a $4 super sticker of an extra helping of coffee. Thank you so very much, Dave Gar. We're offering you a shot of espresso right back, as well as lots of love. Woo, Dave Gar. As
Dave
well as
Gar.
everyone else.
But I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, like the morality of God. I kind of
we're
rather
veering away from
closer
evolution,
topic
talking
of
about
it.
the Bible a
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
here.
we
Fair
can
enough,
kind of veer
yeah.
away from that a little bit. And, you know,
But-
that's for another chat. We'll chat it. We can chat about that another stream. But
Fair.
We were
Go ahead.
no, where were we?
Kansas, I believe, but hopefully if we clap
what was the last point?
I don't
Well,
think we're in Kansas
Rubiks
anymore.
Rubiks was saying that God is the villain of the Bible from Genesis. And I can't remember why we got on that. Oh, because I was saying that evolution was evil. It was,
Like
Okay.
with
death and suffering.
yeah. So if there's nobody behind, so evolution's more like the free market, right? It's complexity is the result of the free market, if you will, because the more complex and versatile the gene, the more successful the offspring, the better they can compete with other organisms for resources. So it is kind of like it's like almost organismal capitalism on who can survive and collect the most resources, right?
Whoever happens to get the luck of the draw has the right mutations. They get to they get to live, and everyone. Yeah, I mean it's cruel, but that's nature. Nature is cruel. You know, the baby wildebeest getting attacked by the lion. It's cruel. It's a kill or be kill world, but that's the reality.
Yeah, and people need to understand it's not about the individual either. It's about the species, because there's like ants, for instance, they produce most of the offspring that ants produce will never reproduce themselves. They're a worker class who are essentially a genetic clone of the queen, or the queen should be considered a genetic clone of them, because the worker bees are really, or worker ants, whichever, they're all hymenopterans, are really the ones who call the shots in the ant colony, and the drones and everything. They don't really have too much say. The queen doesn't really have too much say. It's
She reproduces, mates, lays eggs.
Actually, I made some notes weeks ago. Because evolution does have a couple of different modes. It's not just natural selection. It should be a point to make. There's a bottleneck. Genetic drift is a big part of evolution, which is the bottleneck effect and founder effect.
It's still based on genetic variations, isn't it?
Yeah, so the
Mutation.
bottleneck effect, a great example is the island of Pingelap. I don't know exactly what year, but it was like a few hundred years ago.
I'm so sorry.
Most of the population of that island was wiped out in like a cataclysmic tidal wave. And one of the people that survived was the king. And the king had a very specific form of color blindness that made him see the world in black and white. And now on that island, hundreds of years later, 10% of that population has that form of color blindness that is extremely rare. 10%. That's an example of the bottleneck effect.
Well, I mean, cheetahs are a great example of that. They have a lot of genetic issues because they have that very severe bottleneck that they had.
And to be clear, what with the process that we as humans call domestication is just us creating artificial bottlenecks of the population with specific traits that we want to kind of extract
We're
and
selecting
expand
for
on. Yeah. So, I mean, we create our own bottlenecks. That's our whole process. That's how we got dogs and cows and pigs and everything that we've domesticated from wild ancestors. Sometimes to the point where they are not even able to survive on their own in the environment anymore because we create artificial environmental pressures for them as well. We've kind of set ourselves aside from natural selection, and for the most part, we've set our livestock aside as well. So while the sculpting organisms of nature continues on at its slow pace, we as humans can speed that up because we know exactly what we want. We can pick and choose. Nature doesn't do that.
Bree,
Mhm.
I want you to think about what you're saying, honey. You're talking about breeding. You're talking about selection. You're talking about choosing from available genes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about creating a new thing that doesn't exist already in that gene pool.
So let's think about this. So you can create new words without having to create new letters, right? So you can create a new organism by rearranging the same genetics that are already there. There can be new genes that are added. Is there what?
Is there evidence of that?
I'm not a geneticist, but that's my understanding of how genetics actually, how we understand the differences between organismal groups is that we look at those changes in the arrangements of the letters. So we
all have the same four chemicals in our DNA. No, we all have the same four chemicals in our DNA. It's just how they're arranged.
Yeah.
And
so there's the four letters.
If you take a book and you keep changing letters in the book, at no point can you keep changing, but the book stays the same. If you keep changing the letters, it's going to continue to change. It doesn't reach a point where it just stays the same. No matter, it's just going to keep changing because that's just how it works, and that's what the genetic code does.
Okay, this is something that I've thought about a lot. Okay, I'm an avid gardener, and when you look at a tree making its blooms, every single bloom is the same. And I was thought about this when Bree was talking about the ants and the worker ants and how they're a clone. And basically that's what we see in reproduction is clones. What we see in real life is a copy machine. We don't see a random generator.
It is random though.
But all the ants are the same. All the blooms on a tree are the same.
But humans and trees are very different in how the reproduction is. A lot of times trees end up reproducing with themselves, producing a clone.
But every single thing that reproduces, it reproduces a clone, basically.
No. I'm not a clone of my mom. I'm not a clone of my dad. I'm a mix of their genes.
It's the same species, but it's not a clone.
And not even genes that were necessarily expressed by your parents. You can have expressions of genes that one of your ancestors 6 times removed had. And have,
but it's not going to take you outside of your species. And that's what James just said. Okay, and that's what Aaron says, that a dog is never going to produce a non-dog, sorry to use a Ken Hovinism. And that Aaron agrees with that. But there's a serious confusion on my part. I fail to see how that you can believe, a phylogenetic tree that shows a common ancestor turns into.
Because, well, I think that it's because of the way it's presented.
Yes.
And I think I may be able to clarify it for you. So it's nested. You like so let's consider that what we're going to use. We're going to use dogs. I'm sorry, Amy. There's not enough. I don't have enough variety in text to
Chipmunks!
do this.
Tardigrades.
No. We're going to do dogs this time. Okay.
Aardvarks.
Dogs are carnivorans. So there was an ancestor that was called a carnivoran, right? And it went on and had two babies, and one of them went on to lead to the Felidae. One went on to lead to the Canidae. But along that way, there was a organism that was the common ancestor between bears and dogs, and it split off. Then there's a combination ancestor between foxes and dogs, and it split off. And there's a common ancestor between coyotes and dogs, and it split off. Right? We see this going down the way, but the coyote and the dog are still the same. They're still in the same group that is Canis, right? And they can reproduce. And you move back, and you got dogs and bears that are still in the group Caniform, right? And then you move. So those are the same. That could be a kind. Caniform could be a kind. And you move it back one more, and they're still in the carnivoran, and carnivoran could be a kind based on that. So these are nested groups within groups. All of the caniforms have the same ancestor, but all the foxes and dogs have the same ancestral group. So they're within that same circle of caniform, but outside of that, there are other groups of canids as well. I don't necessarily like the way that it's presented on the line graph. I like it better when it's groups within groups. I think let me share this.
You can actually track where the split came from by how genetically similar we are to another group. Like chimps and humans share about 98% of the same genetic code. Give or take.
Do you realize that 2% of the code is enough to be? It's millions of differences.
Yes.
And so
can I share my screen?
But we split off millions of years ago. So
about 6 to 8 million years ago.
Yeah, we would expect there to be.
Yes, you can. However, I do want to just interrupt 1 second before. Well, you know what? We'll do it right after you're done because you're on topic.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. But then after we do this, I want to read out another super chat. I do see the chat is going, sending love out there with questions. But
this is an open mic, unfortunately. This is nobody else coming on for this stream. Sorry.
But and sending love out there, I do see Donald and Sirloin and everybody that's continuing. JG, everyone out there. Send in love. And with that, let's get
All right, this is just really simplified. This gives an example of why I don't like the line graphs so much as I do the ones with the circles. They did the two of them overlapped here, which is great. And what's represented here is the vertebrate family tree. So you got your fish, the Pisces up here, and you got your amphibians as the outgroup to the tetrapods. So you got tetrapod forking here. These went on to be the amphibians, and these went on to be the amniotas, those hard-shelled eggs. We're actually in that group ourselves, ironically, because our ancestors did lay hard-shelled eggs. There's still mammals that do that today. So you got mammals right here. This is what I like, though. This is the representation I like. See, the blue section here would be paraphyletic because it is excluding. Oh, you can't really see the text. This is birds right here. So since you can't see it, this is aves. So since this group includes all descendants from this reptilia divide, where you have lepidosaurs, which are snakes and lizards, testuodines, which are turtles, crocodilians, speaks for itself, and you got a split here where the crocodilians are the archosaurs, which they share the group with birds because birds are nested within reptilia. Now, the reason that it is outgrouped like this. Could be for a variety of reasons in its morphology, but not its ancestry. Its development of warm-bloodedness, for instance, endothermy could set it apart, and that's why they've cropped it out here, but it is actually nested within this. So when you look at the blue circle, this is what they call paraphyletic. That means that all these organisms are related, but they exclude this group for whatever reason. This doesn't help us with evolution at all, or with understanding the timeline. It just helps us as humans classify things, which is not good, but we're doing our best. We're just smart monkeys. So as smart monkeys, we're doing the best we can.
Apes. We're apes, not monkeys.
We're monkeys as well, actually.
No, there's a difference between apes and monkeys. There's a distinct difference. Okay,
that's good. This will work here. Let's do apes and monkeys. So, on this graph, right? Apes would be nested within monkeys. So
catarrhines. Actually, it's catarrhines.
Catarrhines and platyrrhines. Platyrhines
are New World monkeys. Catarrhines, but apes and Old World monkeys. But
apes are Old World monkeys. They are Old World.
Catarrhines.
Yeah, they are catarrhines.
But and apes are different than Old World monkeys, but we're in the same.
No, they're not. They are Old World monkeys.
It's different. It's slightly different.
But they're a group of Old World monkeys. Apes are Old World monkeys. We are Old World monkeys.
Catarrhines.
We are.
Include Old World
We're
monkeys.
Catarrhines.
There's a distinct difference between apes and monkeys.
Yeah. No. Apes are hominids, and we are a group of catarrhines.
Yes, but
we are catarrhines, which are monkeys. Which are Old World monkeys.
Catarrhines are two groups: Old World monkeys and apes.
No, that's not. No, they're not separate. They're nested. That's what I'm talking about here. Nested cladistics. They're grouped within groups. So they don't split off and become a new group. You never outgrow your ancestry. You will always be a monkey.
Apes are monkeys, but not all monkeys are apes.
And I just want to pull the skeptics apart. I actually am enjoying it, though. Well, no, I'm actually going to just switch. Are you... well, it doesn't matter. We can keep that up either way. Oh, there. Yeah, I'm done. Oh, no. By all means, we love to share. That is
Bree was trying to show on the diagram. She was trying to help me understand
nested cladistics.
And why? Because I asked a certain question that you wanted to help me understand. Oh, okay. So James and Aaron say that a dog will never have a non-dog, but that we can come from a non-dog. Is that right?
Yes. Right. Yes. Because you name the new group as you name the new group that arises within the group something different. The old group keeps its old name. So if a
populations
new
evolve, not individuals.
Yeah. If a new population evolves with enough genetic distinction to be a new species, that will be within or part of the previous group. That's why labeling things species, genus, family, and all that is arbitrary. That's something we created. That's not how evolution actually works. Each individual is a species.
That is completely. It doesn't work. Okay, so if you say that humans evolved from primates, and you say that it didn't leave its species because we are still primates.
Mm-hmm. We are a group of primates.
That's negating the fact that an ape and a human are a different species.
We're different groups of primates.
We share a common ancestor.
And Sandy, have a last sentence, but then I have to bring up Disciple Day's super chat.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. There we go. That's the last sentence. Disciple Day for $20, sending so much love, and we are sending that love right back. Says, hello, Amy, James, Bree, Rubiks, and Cindy. As both a skeptic and a Christian, I really enjoy learning people's different and sometimes competing perspectives. Thank you. as I choke on my own air. But
We
thank
love
you
our,
so very
our
much,
Christian,
Disciple
theist
Day. Exactly.
viewers.
It is always lovely to have atheists, theists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, pagans, deists,
Flat
everybody,
earthers.
and of course, atheists and agnostics. But thank you so very
Blur.
much, Disciple Day. It is lovely to have you with us, and we will keep on making great conversations. All right, they keep on. Well,
Yeah. So what?
back
Monkey.
to you,
Go ahead.
Rubiks. No, back to you.
Oh, so yeah, monkey for a banana made the point what I was trying to explain. I just lost it. But
Well,
so
you keep thinking of it.
catarines.
Okay.
Can
Is
you
it-
go back and read it?
I'm trying to find where it is.
It says
I lost it.
Cercopithecoidea is the old world monkeys. Apes and old world monkeys together form Catarini.
Yeah,
so apes and old world monkeys are Catarines. So they're
Yeah,
all
that's what I was
grouped
trying to
together.
explain. So old world monkeys and apes are distinctly different, but they're
No,
from the same
old
parent.
world apes are a group within old world monkeys.
No.
Yes.
No. Catarines is a group that includes apes
Having
and
deja
old
vu
monkeys.
again.
It's different. This is what I majored in. I majored in.
Well, no, and I think Bree had the last final word on that one. You have the last final word on this one. We are going to possibly have a debate on that. But we are going to. I'm going to ask because the chat is going. Woo! They want you, Cindi. I'm not even sure which specifically.
Don't do it.
Was there a You don't say it. You're saying don't. Okay.
I know. I don't know what logical fallacy because it was a response to
Yeah.
something Rubiks said, and I don't remember what it was.
It
Yeah, I
was
don't
the
remember what it
irreducible
was either.
complexity, I think.
No, we
Okay,
haven't
so
discussed
she
the
said the
reducible
term-
complexity.
She used the term logical fallacy, but I don't think she meant it in the formal way. I think she just meant that it was fallacious rather than maybe formally logically malformed. But
I think you might be
that's
right,
our-
James.
yeah, I think you just meant that it was it wasn't true or was illogical, not necessarily that it was a formal logical fallacy. But
Did
our
it?
viewers
Did it?
pick up on
It
things
didn't
like
logically
that.
follow, or it didn't make sense.
Right. So yeah. No problem.
But
there.
that's okay.
I would just say that removing
She-
apes from Catarines is what they call
That's saying
polyphily, which is where you separate two groups that are actually related and you remove one from the ancestry. You can do that. You can classify them that way, but that's not a monophily is what we try to aim for when we're classifying organisms. And by monophily, we are definitely monkeys. We are definitely apes.
I
There's
just
a
want to
difference
say
between monkeys and apes, though. There is a distinct
There's
difference.
not
So,
though.
Bree,
There's arbitrary and made up difference. Genetically,
God.
there's no difference.
I just want to send love one more last time out to the Sinister Porpoise, to Disciple Day,
Disciple
to
Day.
Ian,
You're beautiful out
to
there.
everyone who has been sending in all of those super chats. It really does help us create even more fantastic content. But I want to say, is there any of you that feel like there's a topic in evolution or creationism that we have not touched at all, that maybe are on the opposite side or a nook or cranny?
Point to bring up.
Sure.
So why do you take the Genesis account literally, Cindi?
I have evolved to that belief.
So
Originally,
let me ask you a couple follow-up questions. So I'm assuming you believe that the Bible is inspired by God. Is that a correct assumption?
yes, ma'am.
And I am assuming you also believe that Jesus is God, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I believe he's the creator of the universe come down to earth.
And Jesus spoke in parables, correct?
Yeah.
Then why couldn't the Old Testament be a parable? Because it was inspired by God. If God and human form spoke in parables, why can't that God inspire in parables?
If you read any literature, you can tell by the context if you're reading a parable or if you're reading a historical narrative.
And
And
the Jewish interpretation of Genesis is that it is a parable.
that's not necessarily true. Some
I've
Jews,
spoken to many rabbis, and they almost all agree that it is a parable,
Well, I
or
mean,
like
there
a
are
kind of like a
different viewpoints
mythos.
on it. There
yeah,
are
there's
very conservative rabbis who do believe that it's all literal, but I would say probably the majority of them have moved to the point where they're open to metaphorical
Well,
or
what does it matter if the
allegorical.
rabbis believe that? Cindy has her own beliefs. I mean, we shouldn't be holding her
Right,
to the
Fair.
standard of a rabbi.
Fair.
right.
She's not a
That's true.
rabbi.
I'm more going up based off the original people who wrote that book were Jewish.
Well, I think that there's a lot of pressure that this whole evolutionary theory and the supposed millions of years is influencing a lot of people away from the faith. And so they're trying to find a way to reconcile what the Bible teaches with what they are being taught in school. And as far as I'm concerned, they don't understand that what's being called science isn't as factual as we are being led to believe. Sorry. That's what I believe.
If you had to say, what would be the biggest thing for you in terms of age of the Earth? What is like the biggest thing that you could say that leads you to believe the 6,000 year, as dated by Archbishop Usher, is accurate?
When you read Genesis, it says very clearly, there was evening, there was morning the first
Right.
day. There was evening, there was morning the second day. It doesn't say the first eon. It doesn't say it. It's
No, you're right. I know
and
you have
then
a literal. You interpret that literally. I was trying to say, like in terms of like the natural world, is there anything you can point to that you think indicates a young Earth more than what the scientific answer would be of a 4 point something billion year old Earth?
okay, so not scripturally, but in the natural world.
Right,
Yes.
like because you say you don't have blind faith. Well, I mean, you have faith in the Bible, right? You believe it that it's and you take a literal interpretation of that. But is there anything you could point to outside the Bible that you think would affirm or strengthen your faith?
Yes. For me personally, when I look at the layers all over the planet, it's very clear to me that the whole Earth was at one time covered by water. And so the layers that you guys look at and say that means a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, that's millions of years. I look at it and I say, wow, that was a global catastrophe.
And there's evidence of multiple global
So,
catastrophes in the fossil record. Multiple
yeah,
millions of years ago. But that doesn't necessarily mean a flood.
there's evidences of multiple extinction events, which could all be just phases of the flood. And
But
it doesn't necessarily, the indication for millions of years is radiometric dating. And if you count each layer as a year.
it's more than that, though, as well. Like, with what we can see with, like, telescopes, the James Webb Telescope, we can see things that happened almost 13 billion years ago. Close to.
Okay, the distant starlight problem. For me, if God is going to make the sun, he's not going to make the sun and then make it travel. The purpose of the sun is to give warmth and to be a timekeeper for days and years. So if he can make Adam and Eve look 30, he can make the sun and the light that travels to the earth all at the same time. I believe he's an omnipotent God. With a word, he can speak things into existence. So the distant starlight problem for me is not a problem. The stars were put there for us to see. He's not going to put them there and then we have to wait millions of years before the light gets here. That's dumb to me. It's not a very potent God.
Light has a very set speed. You know this,
Right.
right?
What she's saying,
saying
Rubiks,
he-
is she's saying that God created the photons, like that
Oh,
entire path
I
from the
gotcha.
star to here. He
package
created
deal.
that stream. Right. He created the
package
star and a stream of photons that we would see right away, as if it had been shining for billions
Oh,
of years.
okay.
I
I
think
got
that's
you
what-
now.
I think that's what she's
Why
saying.
would he do that, though, is the weird part, right?
Yeah.
Because we needed it right now.
We needed
Why would he
starlight
make us
before.
first? And well, it says that the stars, the sun and the moon were created for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And so they were signs in the sky. They were timekeepers. That's how we count our months, with the moon, our years with the sun. So yes, we needed them right away. Why would he make them and have us not be able to see them for a million years?
Right. But the
Humans
thing
weren't on
is
this
if,
Earth.
Why not make them closer and smaller too, though?
right.
There's lots
Why
of
would
them.
he have to make them 8-10 billion light years away?
To show how
Yeah.
big he is. He's infinite, right?
Ooh. I can get on board with that. He wants to show off
That's right,
how
Queen.
powerful. That's why I've heard that's why he made Leviathan too. You think that's true?
Yes, I actually do. I did a
I,
teaching on Leviathan.
Yep.
John, mute Amy.
I would love
I
to
said,
talk about Leviathan
Why?
sometime with you
Leviathan.
too.
I didn't know what you guys knew what I had in my closet, but
Ooh.
But yes, I just want to send love out there. We are Talk Skeptic to me on evolution and creationism. We have our special guest Cindi Lincoln, as well as our fantastic guest panel with us, Rubiks and Bumble. Woohoo! So sending love out there, and I'll keep on. Is there any other trying to, like I said, explore every nook and cranny?
Well, why must Genesis interpretation be literal for you? Why must it be?
Because if it's not, then the whole book is fairy tale.
Why?
If the first
But
chapter,
why?
if the first chapter is fairy tale, then what good is the rest of it?
It doesn't have to be a fairy tale. Why can't it be a metaphor?
Well, then the rest of it's metaphor.
But
Well,
why does that
I will-
mean
In
God
other
doesn't
words,
exist?
you can take and leave, and it loses its meaning.
I will
Why-
say, like, for me, for my personal journey through Christianity, was when I accepted the science about evolution and everything, and I took a metaphorical interpretation of most of the Old Testament. I accepted the consensus that most of it was, or at least parts of it, were not literal history. But you do reach a point where that does start to cause problems with the theology, and that was one step down the path that led me to conclude that it wasn't true. So I think what they're doing is they don't want to give an inch on that, because if they're open to metaphorical or allegorical interpretations, that could just snowball. And if you can throw part of it out or disregard part of it, you might go down that path and just throw the whole thing out, which is actually what kind of happened for me. It was an evolution. But
That's fair.
I also think that Jesus took it literally. He said, in 6
certainly
days,
did.
the Lord created heaven and earth.
Which
And he-
passage was that? I'm going to look that up.
Thank you. I would have to look it up too. And he also gave the genealogy all the way from Adam to Jesus.
Jesus did not give that genealogy. It was in, I think it was Matthew, I want to say, listed it. It was
You're
like the
right.
first.
Technically, you're right. I'm just saying that because God wrote the word.
Well,
The
was
other-
that supposed to have come to Matthew from Jesus's lips, or did?
So if God is a Trinity, okay, this is what I believe, that God is always the Father is always in heaven. Jesus was God's representation in the flesh, so we could talk to him. And then the Holy Spirit is what's left after Jesus goes back. And so those three are God, and they are the ones who wrote the Bible.
I also just want to send love out there. I see Sal Cordova out there sending love. I see
Sal.
Megan.
Sal's gonna be mad at me for not doing this right. Hi, Sal.
Hey, Sal, you're doing great, Cindy. What are you talking about? This has been
Yeah.
fun.
He wants me to always be at the molecular level, and I just have other things that I like to talk about.
Well, I like talking about the environmental
Nope.
level, and that's
ACTG.
Nobody
Here you
can
go,
expert
Sal.
everything.
Same.
Got that codon chart ready.
Don't forget, you're a cell for RNA.
What was I looking
Go ahead
up?
and
Ruby?
weep, John.
Oh, the passage where Jesus said that it was created in 6 days.
Okay. God.
Well,
'Cause I don't recall
Paul
ever reading that in the
affirmed-
Old Testament, especially in the Gospels.
And immutable destiny.
Well,
What's
I
that?
mean, Paul certainly believed that existed. He said in Romans, as sin entered the world through Adam. So
That is
I mean,
Paul,
Paul
not
believed that
Jesus.
we're right, but I mean,
That's a really good point,
Christians,
James. That's
Paul
the
was
other
given
huge
a
crux.
special.
That's the
God
huge
preached
crux,
as
okay?
the
Because
gospel.
I'm so sorry, honey. What?
No, go ahead. Go. I was just saying. She said it was Paul, not Jesus, and that's true. But if Christians believe that Paul was commissioned personally by Jesus to preach the gospel, so that's not really going to give them any. They're not going to be
Yeah.
concerned about that. The fact that
Every
it wasn't
single
from
person who
Jesus.
wrote the canon was inspired by God. So it doesn't matter if it was Paul or Moses.
Yeah.
But what you were saying, James, about death entering the world through Adam. So if evolution is true,
Romans, yeah.
death came before Adam. And therefore sin did not make death. Therefore God made this world full of death. Whereas I believe in a God that made paradise with no death, no sickness, and that we are responsible for corrupting his beautiful creation, and that the new heavens and the new earth will be a restoration of his paradise where there will be no more death. The lion will lie down with the lamb.
But didn't that God also know that we were going to betray him from the
Yes,
beginning?
ma'am, he sure did.
So why would he have done that if he knew that we'd be going destruction? Like, what would be the whole point of that? Why not make us so we don't go against him? Wouldn't that be what a loving God would do?
I believe this may or may not satisfy, but the answer that keeps getting brought up is, well, actually, Sal did a beautiful Valentine's Day presentation about this. He wants someone who will love him of their free will, not someone who will love him because they have no choice.
That is fair.
I mean, I could go down that rabbit hole, but I really don't want to do that in this stream. Maybe next time
Fair.
I can
Yes.
I can take you down that rabbit hole a little bit in terms of free
James,
will
you should.
and choice. But
James, you should. That's really a crucial issue.
you want me to touch on it right now? Okay.
If
Well,
you think you could, yeah.
sure. I mean,
yes, please touch on it.
okay. That might make sense what Sal is saying about the Valentine's Day and the thing. If God came to humanity and he said, hey, I made you because I want you to worship me. I want you to do what I say. I love you. I want you to love me back. I want you to go to heaven so you can tell me how great I am. That's why I made you. And you'll be happy doing it. You'll love every minute of it. And but if you don't want to do that, if that's not what you want to do, I guess you can go and if you want to do your own thing, you can go do your own thing. If you want to not exist anymore, you cannot exist anymore. But when he comes to you and says, well, your choices are you can worship me forever, or if you don't want to do that, well, you're going to go to a place where you're going to be tortured and burned forever. But I want you to it's your own free will. I'm not trying to coerce you. What do you want to do? It's not really like a choice because there's that that coercion, that penalty factor that, it's like if you get robbed on the street and a guy pulls a gun on you and you give him your purse and then you call the police and then he tells the police, I mean, she gave it to me. I didn't take it from her. And he says, well, I mean, the fact that I held a gun to her, but I mean, she still gave it to me of her own free will, right? I mean, she could have chose to be shot. It's not a true choice because the alternative to making that choice would be something so unimaginably bad that it just, to me, it's not a free choice. But
I've heard that argument before, James, and I actually don't have a good rebut to it. But for me, I am not a believer because I fear hell. I'm a believer because I saw the beauty of creation from the time I was a little girl. My dad would take me to Yosemite, Yellowstone, and I would see these places untouched by human hands and how beautiful they were. And when I went back into the city, you could see what happens when humans touch it. It's not pretty anymore. And I knew there was a God, but I thought he was invisible and he could never be known. And that pissed me off because how are you supposed to hold us accountable if you never come down and tell us what you want? And so when I found out that he did come down, I was overjoyed. So for me, I was attracted to the beauty and the positives. Hell doesn't bind me to Jesus. Hell keeps me from doing things that I would do otherwise. But it's not what sealed my choice. But I do understand that point. I do sympathize with that point. I don't like, in fact, just recently, somebody was trying to share with somebody and they were using these depictions of hell and fire. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I mean,
well, are you familiar with a guy named Father Johann Tetzel? He was a traveling preacher in the Middle Ages, I think in the 1500s, and he was a Catholic, so they were selling indulgences, but he was making the church so much money. But he would basically he would do a thing where he would have like banners and portrayals of hell, and he would actually put his hand in a fire for like a good 10 or 15 seconds and let it get singed, and then pull it out and show the people like if if you have sin in your life, if you have unforgiven sin, this is what's going to happen to you. Not for a minute, not for 10 seconds, not for a day, but forever. He was bringing money into the church left and right. That's when they were building cathedrals all over the place because he would be able to absolve any sin with his indulgences, and people bought him like hotcakes.
Jesus was very harsh against Pharisees like that. He held his harshest words for people who misrepresented him like that.
Yeah, now thankfully Christianity has moved away from that, and that's a good thing. It is just it's part of the history. That's all I mean. Although I realize most Christians today wouldn't do anything like that, but I agree with you, Bert.
I do want to say the Bible teaches that God is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And there's another verse that says something that he doesn't take any joy in the destruction of
the wicked. Yeah.
When I experienced what I experienced from Kent Hovind, I actually waffled on that a little bit because I think I will enjoy that.
His downfall?
It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like a good God to let him get away with what he did. And so in a way, hell is good. I mean, he's had how many chances? He preaches the gospel to himself every single night. He's had 1 million chances to make things right. He refuses. and he continues to steal, kill, and destroy.
Why?
And so that is one way that you can, that makes me feel like hell isn't so bad.
Do you think non-believers deserve hell if they were otherwise good people? People who do good without for the sake of good, not because of some reward.
Do you believe in works-based salvation?
Yes.
I know what you mean, and you are correct that I've experienced more good people outside of the church, and I have been hurt more severely by people inside the church. The way I liken it is, let's pretend we're God for a minute, and we prepare this beautiful Garden of Eden with everything you would ever have in your heart's desire. Everybody wants to go to Hawaii, right? It's temperate, it's lush, it's stunningly beautiful, it's peaceful.
Open bar?
Open bar.
That's a whole topic for another.
God made alcohol. I'm sorry, Ken Hoven's wrong about that. But and then the children that you made it for, they come up to you and they say, you didn't make that. We're going to follow this snake guy that you told us is going to kill us. And that is the kind of thing that would make us worthy of hell, not because we didn't help enough old ladies across the street or love one another. And by the way, we all fail the love test, do we not?
What if it's because we see evidence that leads us away from believing what's in the Bible? If we look around the world and we're seeing evidence, like me and Rubik both went to school and looked at this stuff and were educated in the way that that animals evolved, that the cosmos evolved. I mean, they're showing us evidence that contradicts what you're telling us, and we're believing that evidence because, we're analytical people or whatever. We like this data that they're showing us. It makes us feel affirmed that what they're telling us is true because they're showing us data, right? So we're at no fault of our own because there is this data that exists. We're following what they're giving us. We're following where the evidence leads us according to the data that we're being given. So how are we at fault to God for doing that? For believing that the world is how the world and how he made it makes it is evident.
For believing the education that you're receiving.
And you could also argue that God knows, the God of the Bible would know whether or not we're going to end up believing before we're even born. He's going to know if we're going to be in heaven or hell before we're even born. You could argue that. He knows
Actually,
everything we're going to do before we actually do it.
That is scriptural, Rubiks. That is scriptural.
So then why would he create people that he knows the purpose is to go to hell? They were otherwise good people.
Well,
what are we for? Why are we here?
Like, the only thing I can say, like the apologetic that I've heard and what I would say to try to steel man that for the Christian would be that how it is they read in the Bible, that's what it says. Maybe that's not how they would have done it if they were God. There are parts of it they don't understand. They don't know why God chose to do it that way, but he does tell us that he is a good and loving God. So I think that they trust that and trust that at the end they will understand why that he did it the best possible way. That's what I would say, the apologetic. But what do you think, Cindi?
I believe you're correct, James. That's very close to what I would say. I did want to respond to what Bree asked too, in terms of, is he going to hold you accountable for believing what you've been taught and believing what you believe is evidence? And I guess I would just say that's why I'm here. I'm trying to help.
To convince us that what other people are telling us is wrong. And I guess that's what brings us to this panel, actually, right?
Right.
Wouldn't that guy know exactly what it would take for us to believe? And it's just laziness if that guy doesn't. If that guy really wants us to be with him, he would provide the
My,
evidence that would take us to believe. If he really
I
wanted
believe,
us.
I believe he does provide evidence. Every day when you smell a flower and you feel the wind on your face and you see the stars in the sky. But I do agree with what you're saying, Rubiks, as far as if he made the Garden of Eden and the people in it, why did he have to put that stupid tree there? Why didn't he just kill the snake before the snake destroyed us?
Well, I mean, Cindy, I would commend you. You have very deep faith. You have a very, you're very sincere. You truly believe this in your heart, which I can't say for a lot of young Earth gracious. I think a lot of them are not in it because they truly believe it. I think they're in it for the grift because it's a money making. It's a way to fame, notoriety. But I don't think that's I don't think that's you at all. And you remain very faithful. But look in the Bible, and you've never seen any direct evidence of God. You've never talked to God. He's never appeared to you. He's never manifested a miracle right in front of you. You've never seen any of that overtly, but you still remain faithful. But Adam and Eve, God personally talked to them, and they saw him in all his glory, and they still didn't have faith in what he said. God came down to the Israel numerous times in the Old Testament, personally talked to them, personally appeared, personally did miracles right in front of their face. He parted the Red Sea, and then a few weeks later, Moses went up on the mountain a little bit too long, and they said, well, what are we going to do? I mean, we might as well melt our gold down and make an idol, because what could go wrong? I mean, they had actual firsthand 100% proof that God existed. And, anytime they were left alone for more than 5 minutes, the first thing they wanted to do is disobey him or worship other gods. It's,
This is what he teaches us is human nature. That's what he calls that we are sinners and that we need a savior. What about the Pharisees? They saw Jesus heal a blind man, more than one blind man. He raised 3 people from the dead.
Before we go on to fair, I just want to point out that we have actually 2 celebrities with us tonight. Not only do we have Cindi Lincoln, but hopefully later on we have the snake from the Garden of Eden. So hopefully we will finally get to some answers. Hopefully,
is that the talking snake with legs?
Huh?
Was the snake from the Garden of Eden actually a snake, though? I mean,
I'll be honest with you. He's a little bit upset about the whole Abcdeig situation where he lost his legs. However, we're going to get to the bottom of it tonight. But right back over to you.
Can I answer that question about the legs?
Go ahead, Cindi.
In the Science Center, I had a whole section on Leviathan. And there's a verse in Revelation where Leviathan is synonymous with the serpent. Leviathan was like a dinosaur. He had legs, and some of them had wings.
Was he dread?
You don't think it was a snake? You think it was some other type of reptile?
Think about it. The dragons look like snakes with legs. So does what's that thing with the long neck? Brontosaur kind of thing?
Yeah,
plesiosaur.
There's
Are you talking about the plesiosaur in the water?
Well, that too. When they come up out of the water and you can't see their body, just their long head, they look like a snake.
Now mention one of those talking to you.
It's just speculation.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Couldn't actually lift out of the water like that. They couldn't do the swan pose, unfortunately. That's what we found out looking at their osteology.
There's actually evidence that snakes at one point did have legs. There is some fossil evidence of that.
Well, sure they did.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And there actually have been snakes with a mutation that they actually have a small pair of legs.
But I mean, snakes do fine without legs. They're very well adapted to their environment. They don't need legs. So Actually,
more
having
legs
legs
had
probably
to have
did a
had
hindrance.
Python still
Because
had
how would it be a
behind
curse
claws.
to lose your legs if you already don't have them?
Wouldn't that be
I
an
don't-
example of evolution?
I don't know how it would be a curse because they do fine without them. I mean,
Yeah.
they were imagine trying to
That's
hold
what
that
I'm
body up.
saying.
Imagine
That's
trying
what
to
I'm
hold
saying.
that
It
body
couldn't
up on
be.
legs.
It couldn't be that they already crawled on their belly. They had to have been not crawling on their belly in order to be cursed by crawling on their belly.
Snakes seem to do fine crawling on their belly, though. So is it really a curse?
Having legs would be
She's
a
saying it was
hindrance in a
another
lot of
type of animal.
environments.
Yeah.
Like through the treetops, especially, snakes are phenomenal. In marine environments,
the water,
they're having
yeah,
that
they're
streamlined
very good.
body. They can move through the water quicker than it's
Water snakes are
amazing.
fun.
And
Go
I
ahead, Amy.
also just want to point out, I'm sending love out to everyone out there. First of all, welcome, End Time Teacher. We run a variety of different shows. We just launched like our impromptu debate you show where we're doing Discord and what is that new platform? Not TikTok, Clubhouse debates.
Truth
But
social
we
media?
also exactly. But we also do many open mic nights. This our version of Talk Skeptic to me is for our lovely panel. However, feel free to join all more of our other open mic shows, as well as the after show, which will be opening up to everyone on the Discord. We're going to go for, I think, about 45 more minutes and then let all of these lovely people get their outros. However, sending love again.
So
I
much
saw,
love,
first of
Disciple
all,
Day.
Disciple Day, saw your last love. I just want to send you an extra love for that. But now you're sending us even more love. Another $20 super chat from Disciple Day. Cindi, your faith is beautiful and your sincerity is touching. If sometime you, Amy, what's up, would be open to discussion from a different perspective, I would make myself available, though I am a simple man of no renown. Good night. When you say I'm a simple man,
Thanks,
for
Disciple
whatever reason, I imagine like a long beard and you're like wiping the sweat off your brow. You're just like a hard day's work. It's good to be a simple man. But thank you so very much, Disciple Day, for all that love. And we're always open to more conversations, dialogues, debates. As our favorite, as Jen would say, a Socratic gang. What? Anyway, Disciple Day, we're just sending
Thanks,
so
Disciple.
much love out there to you for the support, and we're sending it right back. But
Cindi,
yes.
I wanted to ask if anybody out there wants to send you some support directly. Do you have a means for them to be able to do that?
I do have a GoFundMe. I'm trying to earn funds to sue Kent Hoven's rear end. He stole over $130,000 from the sale of my California home. 20 years worth of my livelihood.
Oh, sweetie, that's terrible.
He is a Leviathan.
He's a con man.
Yeah.
He probably has quite a bit of money as well.
How can they get to your
He
GoFundMe?
makes about
Is
$1
that on
million
your
a year.
channel?
Yeah.
Is that on your channel, the GoFundMe?
And I actually...
Amy's got it right down there.
I was going to say,
Thank
Gizmo
you,
and I
Amy.
worked behind the scenes, and her GoFundMe for legal fees against Kent Hoven is in chat and on screen. But you can also find it at GoFundMe.com/F/legal bracket fees bracket against bracket Kent bracket Kent. It's not a bracket. I'm trying to remember.
Can I ask a question about DAL? I don't want to derail the conversation, but I have a question about Dinosaur Adventureland.
Sure.
Cindi, when you were at Dinosaur Adventureland, and you worked in the Science Center, is what I understand. Is that correct?
I put up most of the displays in the Science Center.
Okay.
Some of them have been refined. Dapper Dino called me out on a couple of things that I did concede, but some of it is very beautiful, and it
Can
was
I just say,
the
Cindi,
love of my life.
You did give up on the canopy, right?
Just like James was saying, it always just feels like you have an open mind, because that type of statement that you just said will never happen from almost any of the other young Earth creationists that we come across. It's almost a lot of times people double down. And so I don't know. I just really love statements like that. I also, just like they were saying, and Big Screen Bird was saying, it is GoFundMe.com/F/legal-fees-against-Kent-Hovind.
Now, I mean, if you guys really want to stick it to Hovind, if you want to give him a headache, I mean, that is a good way to do that, because I mean, you want to keep him up at night. I mean, him getting served legal papers to have to pay back the money he stole, that would really hit him where it hurts.
Well, can I ask my question about it now that I've confirmed that Cindi was working in the Science Center? So the Science Center is where the fossils are, right?
Yes, I have a fossil room, and I had 5 other rooms.
Did you see the giant cockroach?
No, I only had a photo of it.
Okay.
Why?
Oh my! I need context. What about a giant cockroach?
As far as I know, it doesn't exist. If they could be proven to exist, it would shuffle the whole Abcdeig genetic lineage down. So any
cockroaches are not the only gigantism. There were giant beavers. There were giant elk.
There are
lots of gigantism.
I guess what I'm saying is that there weren't giant cockroaches.
I'm going to Google it.
Also,
do you say there weren't giant?
There were no. The biggest cockroaches that ever live now.
James is just attaching himself to the front end of that statement. I know. I completely forgot. There's a Franz Kafka novel that I like. It's completely off subject, and it's where a lot of this Kafka. If you've ever heard the term Kafkaesque, it's really about an absurdity while trying to do normal things. And there is a character who he wakes up. He's a regular businessman, and he wakes up and he finds out he is a giant cockroach, and he struggles throughout the entire book basically to just live a normal life as reality is falling apart from him as he is a giant cockroach. But yes, it's just a very funny
like a DMT trip.
It is.
I think there's a graphic novel of it too.
And it's fantastic. It's trippy.
I was just going to say there was a time period where there were giant invertebrates, giant dragonflies, millipedes, a lot of giant scorpions and things like that. But there were no cockroaches at that time. Cockroaches hadn't shown up in the fossil record until much later after that, when the oxygen levels were lower and insects didn't get quite so big. There had to be.
When I Googled it, it only shows 3.5 inches, which is not what.
That's not very big.
No.
Yeah,
it's a different conversation.
I have a cockroach up here right now that's bigger than that.
Out of curiosity,
good behavior. Good behavior.
Is there any evidence that would convince you that the Earth is not young, or that evolution happened? Is there any evidence that would convince you otherwise, other than what you believe?
I think all the evidence that is used has a different explanation, and I do believe that radiometric dating is going to be proven to be influenced by things that they haven't taken into consideration yet.
And wait, before anyone,
video about that on my website.
Rubiks,
so
I know. I know you're going to want to respond. I'll hand it back over to you. I just want to send, first of all, what's up, Pookiekins in Twitter, sending love, or Twitch, though we are live on Twitter, and nothing wrong has ever gone on Twitter. So that's good. But Sigma for $10. We're sending all the love for all the love you guys and gals have been sending us. I feel like you're slightly mistaken about X. I'm quite convinced my conclusions, considering the way I feel about it and all. But I please continue explaining your perspective of X anyway. So it feels said in love, Sigma out there. It looks like they're bringing some spice. It looks like they're... Well, do you want a response? It looks...
That's kind of like what I was trying to get at. Like, is there any evidence... Would there be any evidence that would convince you otherwise from what you believe about the Earth? Cindi.
I think what you really mean is, am I going to disregard the evidence that you feel is scientific? No. And I would have to say, I believe the evidence is not scientific as you think it is, and that the Bible will be proven scientifically accurate.
I get that's not quite. I'm saying if not necessarily evidence we've provided, but would there be any evidence at all that could ever be
Anything you
presented?
could imagine?
Can you give me an example of what you think it might be?
It's not like I might not be evidence I have, but would there be any evidence that could ever exist that we may not even have now that could show otherwise?
I am convinced
if
that the Bible is reliable, and he has stated his position, and God is never wrong. And
so the answer is no.
But people can be wrong, and people are the ones writing down what God says, right?
I don't know that she's so much saying no. I think she's more saying there's nothing she can think of right now that could change her mind. But
But
to
could
give her
anything
credit, at
ever
least
change your mind? I guess.
at least she is here, willing to listen to
Yes.
what we were saying, and
Absolutely.
she has changed her mind on other things in the past. Like she said with Dapper, I think she gave up on was it the canopy theory that you had to revise, Cindy?
Dapper, okay, in the Science Center, I had a chameleon.
The
Let's
Jackson
see.
chameleon.
The Jackson chameleon.
Triceratops. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, the mini Triceratops. And Dapper called me out on that, and I'm like, okay, I'll concede that.
Yeah.
I
Because,
heard Kent make that argument.
I'm
in a long
not.
time.
What?
I haven't even heard Kent make that argument in a long time. I think maybe that might be like the one thing he's actually embarrassed of, because he has no shame. He will just double down on anything. But I think that Jackson chameleon was a Triceratops thing. He might just have a little bit of embarrassment about that.
The canopy theory, I'm not tied to, but there was something that made the.
Don't mind me.
There was something that made the Earth like a greenhouse, where I do think it's quite feasible to believe that at the poles, where today it's ice, it used to be tropical, because
There's actually evidence for that.
Yeah, there's tons
evidence
of
for
fossil
that.
fuel.
Continental.
There's
fossils of tropical. Yeah.
Fossils
of tropical forest in Alaska.
I'm glad we could all come to agreement. Thank you so very much, Sigma, for all that love. And then we're
Thanks,
another $2 super chat from the Sinister Porpoise saying, give Hoven a Linux PC. Give him a migraine. That sounds about...
I thought she said Hulk Hogan, the wrestler.
I'll be right back. Hold on.
This sounds good.
Just imagine that, like, a cross between Ken Hovind and Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan?
Oh, man, I gotta drink that water.
Oh, I gotta get to work on some Hulk Hogan thumbnails.
Hulk Hogan, yeah, that's a good one.
But
just
sent
ripping
it
off
so
his
much
shirt.
love also, James.
I got into a conversation about Rule 34.
Oh, my.
And Kent Hovind, and, like, sexy Kent Hovind has to exist.
I was going to say.
Don't do it, Rubiks.
It doesn't.
Don't go there.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Please, let it end.
So I photoshopped his face rather poorly under Frankenfurter.
So what you're saying
You've
is...
been hanging out with Beamsy, haven't you?
It may not have existed, but you sure fulfilled that prophecy.
Yes.
I'm okay with this.
I put his face on Frankenfurter. It's hilarious.
Oh my!
I couldn't hear everything I'm missing.
It's like the worst Photoshop job ever.
Rubiks was trying to say that they were trying to interact a true live event where Ken Hovind dressed up as Frankenfurter and went with Matt Powell. It's a great time.
Well, have you seen?
You put Matt Powell on the golden shorts.
Exactly.
Have I seen the video? What?
The feminine version of Ken Hovind that Atheist Jr. made.
No.
It's like Ken Hovind converted into a woman. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, AJ.
Yeah, normally that's only reserved for when Matt Powell gets.
From what I know, I wouldn't put anything past that man.
I think we can all agree he's a garbage human.
Yes, I did.
Hmm?
I thought he was a nice young man that
Well,
was going to
can
save
I-
the ministry from Steve. Little did I know who he really was. He's like Kent. He's got two different people.
Well,
living
I
in
was
his
gonna
body.
say that is the weirdest thing to me. That like I don't like to us, we hear all this. There's no other word, but like reprobate, degenerate crap that comes out of his mouth. Like he has a lot of violent hatred, and yet we get a lot of theists that come by and he's like, "Oh, Matt's such a good boy. He comes home on the curfew and does his chores." We're like, "What? Where does this come from?" And so there is two.
You do a good Mickey Mouse imitation,
I
Emmy.
feel like
Why? Thank you, huh?
I kind of feel like Kent
On
and
the
Matt.
streaming services, haha, and you'll like it.
I feel
Where's
like
that
Kent
Jiminy
and Matt are
Cricket?
gay for each other, just secretly closeted.
Oh no, they
When him and
100%
Kent
are.
do
Look,
pacifier play.
I don't know how closeted Kent is because his focus is like creationism, but like James and I, we have a running joke. I can't help it anymore, but 10 out of 10 anti-gay dentists that come onto the stream always love sucking a big, and we have no idea why. But like without a doubt. So Matt Powell, his focus on, let's just say, LGBTQ issues, Dad, not saying Dow protests too much,
They
but
were
He's
roommates.
got Bree
if
in
the
his,
whole is
sight.
glory, you must say so.
What is Dal protest?
Dow protest a little bit too much. Well, it kind of means that, like,
thou protest. Yeah.
yes, a little bit.
It's
Not
like
that, like,
somebody in the old days before gays were out, they would marry in order to cover the fact that they were gay.
It's called a beard,
They're
yeah.
roommates.
yeah,
they
there you
just-
go.
Slander it real bad so that it looks like they're not. Don't
Yeah.
get me going on that. I would get very irate.
Oh my. But I wouldn't be surprised
We wanted to do that.
because we always have people that will be like, the topic of today is why did Jesus come back from the dead? The first question is, why do gays have a gay voice? You're like, what?
Oh, Bree remembers that stream. She was on it.
Well, that's what I
yeah.
appreciate about having Cindi come on, because I'm so sick of having to explain myself, my gender and sexuality to before we can have a conversation. Cindi doesn't care about that. She wants to talk about the science. I love it.
Right,
Thank
right. Yeah.
I forgot to drink my can of gender
you.
fluid
Oh,
today.
my.
Woo!
Get the Kool-Aid, Rubiks.
Keeps you going.
Yes.
Can I share something that I wrote the other day?
Absolutely.
I don't remember who brought it up, but I saw it in the chat tonight. Somebody said something about man wrote the Bible, okay? I wrote 13 reasons why man could not have written the Bible. Are you ready?
Oh boy,
Okay.
go ahead.
Number 1, men would not say all men are evil and worthy of hell.
They would if they want to control.
Yeah, you're offering a sickness that you can
Self-condemning.
give a cure for. If you tell people that
Okay.
they're evil, but you have the cure for their evilness,
Oh,
Okay,
yo,
men would
Marshall.
not say
just
turn from your
before-
sins.
I just have to say, Marshall, you beat me to that joke. I was waiting for it, but I was like, you drink. If you have a leak, that's when you drink gender fluid. So if you have a gender leak, gender fluid. But yes, we're going right back to Cindy's 13. I think we're on number 2. All yours.
yeah. Read number 2 again. I didn't
Men
hear
would
it.
never say turn from your sins. Okay, men would say do what you want. It's okay.
Unless you wanted to control people by declaring
Okay.
certain things to be sin.
These are just what worked for me. If they don't work for you,
Yeah, no.
And okay,
Okay,
in
go ahead.
fact,
Rich, I'm sorry. Would you want us to stop trying to go at them
Yeah,
when you
did-
come off? With you?
I get a
Yeah,
feeling.
take what you like and leave the rest.
I
Number
would say
3,
we're
men
gonna
would-
wait every 3 or so if you want to maybe say something. But let's
Okay.
let her get out a few so that we can.
All right.
Okay,
But all you, Cindy.
this is my favorite. Men would never say no sex outside of marriage.
Oh, now she's
on,
waiting.
guys.
That's all yours. If you,
Oh,
now she's
I have
saying,
a
bring it
response
on.
to that, but
I mean, it's not like they weren't doing it.
Men
men would say no sex for the women out of marriage. But
That's
if you look at like King David, he had like he did whatever he wanted, right?
right. Well, and when I say men, I'm not referring to men. I'm referring to humankind. But
Okay.
most humans, in fact, I had a conversation with my mom just the other day. She says, I think you should have sex before you get married, because otherwise, how do you know what you're getting into? And humanly
Wise woman
speaking,
right there.
that yeah. Okay, so men would not say that. Humans. Number 4, humans would not say no drunkenness allowed.
It
Oh,
would
like I
have
said,
control.
I mean,
I was,
you think Mohammed was inspired by God? Because he said he came to that conclusion too.
Not to have drunkenness.
Yeah.
Men would not coordinate through multiple generations. Quote, a Messiah will come, a Messiah will come. Hundreds of years before it happened.
They do that now, though. There's still people that believe there's not been a Messiah yet. There's people that believe that Jesus wasn't the Messiah. I think the entire, is that not what Judaism is, right? That the Messiah still hasn't come in that.
But it wasn't a human construct, I don't think. The humans came up with an idea, because if I say, Joe Blow's going to come in 500 years, what good does it do me? I'm going to be dead. And why would I say something that I don't know is going to happen?
So you're talking like, why would you do prophecy?
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Well,
yeah, okay.
I think the New Testament kind of predicts that, because the New Testament says, people will say, where is the promise of his coming? Because maybe they knew, hey, he was never coming back. So maybe eventually people will wonder, hey, the book says he's coming back. He ain't come back yet. They put that in there. So you just keep on waiting, and he will be coming back.
He
But
does
this
say
is why humans couldn't write the book. Humans wouldn't write a book like that. According to Cindi, okay? Number 6, men would not say, go ye into all the earth and teach all nations. Men would say, live and let live.
not necessarily.
Stay in your own lane and just live your own life. 7, men would not say, take up your cross and die daily. Men would not say, love your enemies. I have to agree with that one. Men would not say, our blessed hope is laid up for us somewhere else in heaven where moth and rust cannot destroy. Men would not say, Jesus rose from the dead. They were actually hiding in the upper room, afraid that they would be the next victim. And when the women came and told them he is risen, they did not believe her. And they went back to fishing. Men would not say, destroy them all with a flood.
There's actually multiple accounts of a flood myth in multiple religions across many thousands of years. It's a very common story.
Because it actually happened.
Not necessarily.
And that it's a common history because everybody knew it happened at one point.
But then why would... the thing is, why would multiple cultures have that if everybody died?
From Noah.
If everybody died all at once?
We all descended from Noah. So Noah and his 3 sons are the progenitors of the entire earth, and they knew, they were on the boat, and they told that story to their children, even though Shem went to Asia, Ham went to Egypt, and Japheth went to Europe. They brought the stories with them.
But there's thousands of years of difference between when they were written. And anti-music makes a good point that they're universal in river civilization, so areas near a big source of water that is known to flood. That's a good point.
It says over the highest mountain, and it says that everything would be destroyed. So if it's just a river flood, it wouldn't go over the mountain and it wouldn't destroy everything.
There's not enough water on Earth to do that either. There's not enough water to cover all the mountains.
You believe in the uplifting of the mountains, right? You believe that's why there's shells on the mountaintops, because they were uplifted. So if they were lowered, then it would cover the earth in the oceans.
She thinks that the earth was more flat before the flood. Fair. And that the flood part of the flood was the mountain ranges raising up. there was really
part
no
of the
excuse me.
making the flood stop.
Well, I mean,
You
they have to
raise
give
up
the
the
flood
mountains
like.
and the floodwaters rush off.
I
fact-
mean, remember they give the flood like pretty much like half or more of all plate tectonics. They attribute that to the flood, like all that happened in 1 year, according to their interpretation.
What happened to all that heat and energy? Because that would have
Yeah.
been
Oh, the heat problem. I don't know if
yes,
Cindy's
that would have been a lot
familiar
of
with that or
heat
not.
for all that to happen.
I know that I don't know for a fact. I just have different ideas. I know that there was an ice age. I know that if there was some kind of a vapor canopy that made it into a greenhouse, when you release all that pressure, it's like when you hold a hairspray can and it's very, very cold. I don't know.
Well, there were lots of ice ages though, with warm periods between them.
That's what they say.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what's shown. That's what I was talking about with the ecologies being preserved instead of just the single fossils, the ecologies that are preserved that we can see. That this area was warm, then it was frozen for all this time, then it was warm again, and we can look at the ice cores and the oxygen levels to see what kind of ecosystems were prevalent on the surface of the planet, whether it was warm or cold. If it was warm, there's going to be more plants producing, more oxygen. Go ahead, Rubik. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's also important to note that you only find certain animals in certain layers, and humans are in a lot of those layers. It's only until the very like tippy top of those layers that you see things are human-like or human.
No
You
Cambrian
don't find
bunnies.
humans next to dinosaurs in the layers. If we
And that's
coexisted,
debated
you would
hotly.
find that.
That's debated hotly.
Not among the
Where
scientific
at?
community.
There are dinosaur and human footprints in the same layers.
Where at?
But you
Monroe,
don't find
Texas.
human bones in the same
Oh.
layer as dinosaur bones.
You aren't talking about the Paluxy footprints, are you?
She's
That's
talking
one
about
of
the Biloxi
them.
footprints.
That's one of them, but there are
You know
other
that-
ones.
That there's more, like they're in that same trackway where there's the human footprint. It goes further. If you follow that trackway further down, you can see the dinosaur toes on it. It's just that's the heel without the toes pushing in. For whatever reason, it has its toes raised up during that step. But you can go on down further that same trackway and see where it starts walking with this theropod three.
Are you
toes
saying
on the
that what
ground.
people think is a human footprint is actually a dinosaur footprint?
It's not human footprint. Yeah, it's not human.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I've seen it and it's a human footprint.
Well, things can look like something, but they might not necessarily be that thing. I mean,
Did you actually been to the Paluxy trackway?
Yeah, I
Ooh.
went in April.
Do you
It's
have
on my
pictures?
bucket list.
I'm not telling you to pull them up now. I just say I would love for you to bring them on sometime. You can come on my channel and bring them on if you have pics. And we can talk about it.
she's got
What
Amy's
what
got
I
pics.
saw that
channel.
was more impressive to me was these wooden totem poles that showed humans basically knifing a dinosaur or wrestling a dinosaur or something like that. It was like a wooden totem pole showing a human and a dinosaur together. That
Ooh.
for me
Like
was-
the
You got pictures of that too?
I do.
Also,
think
want
I'm
to
nuts.
send a shout out to just Post-it Lee in our Twitchosphere, sending love to Beamsy and Pure Ozzy Gold, and all of us that have been sticking around. We're going to have about 15-20 more minutes of open dialogue for the panel before we all get our outros. But the Discord will also be opening up for after shows if anyone would like to continue the conversation. Oh, sending love, all love in the world, Sal.
Hey,
Mwah,
Sal.
mwah,
Sal, did I do too bad? I talked
sure
about
he'll-
dinosaurs and humans. That really ticks him off.
mwah.
I'm sure he'll give you some pointers.
Go
Sal?
ahead, James.
Are you familiar? So you understand that the Yellowstone caldera is a volcano, right? Yellowstone Park. It's an active volcano.
I don't know what the word caldera means, but I've heard that
It's
Yellowstone
the-
is about to blow.
Well, sometime in the next 50,000 years or so. I mean, but when they look at the geology in that area, they see 27 layers where there was a forest and then there's a layer of volcanic ash, and then there's another forest, and then another layer of ash. And that happened 27 times. You almost might think.
And remember what we
27
talked about, how
volcanic
long it
eruptions.
takes for the forest to grow earlier in the
You guys, I can't believe you haven't heard this argument. Are you not familiar with Spirit Lake? When
the
Mount St.
polystrate
Helens
stuff,
blew,
or where they're
it looks like multiple successions of forests, but it's not. It's just when a volcano blows, it basically levels all the trees, and Spirit Lake was shoved up onto this mountainside and brought all the trees down into the water, and there was a floating log mat. There still is. 1980 is when it happened, and there still is a huge log mat floating, but
right.
Gradually the logs will get saturated with water and they will sink to the bottom, and they sink at different times. So it looks like a forest because the heavier part of the tree, the root mass, sinks first. And so it looks like it was buried in place, but actually it's not buried in place.
Are you familiar with paleoecology? These aren't concepts that we don't account for when we're studying these lost biomes. We can see that there's traits that we can look for in the way that they're preserved to say, hey, these were logs that floated in a lake for decades before they sank to the bottom in different groupings.
If I'm not mistaken, the petrified logs in Yellowstone, if you dig them up, you will see they do not have their entire root system. They were uprooted first.
I believe a lot of them do have the root system intact. I haven't read on it in a little bit. I'm not but I do.
Well, it's not even that we just see the trees. It's the sediment around them. We can see if the soil and the products of the environment that they were growing in, to see that an old growth forest was here in this location. Not just that the trees were blown here, but that the forest was in this location. You can look at the composition of the sediment and make those kind of inferences from that information.
How would you know if the sediment was displaced by a huge amount of water? It's still going to have the same composition. It's just moved by the water.
So, and that's fine. It can be moved into that area by water. But what James is pointing out is that it happened 27 times. Forest sediment, forest with the forest sediment, and then volcano, and then forest with. And then,
what you're missing is that if you're saying 27 times, you're saying there are trees existing in 27 layers. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that's because they fell at different times. And the layers of sediment and ash would be because of the volcano.
You think an eruption like that, all the trees are going to fall down at once. That is a ginormous volcano. They're basically all going to be destroyed instantly.
That's correct. They are all leveled at once. And you can look at pictures of Mount St. Helens and it looks like toothpicks laying down on a mountain. But that doesn't mean they all sink at the same time.
I don't think they were going to be sinking. There's not going to be a lot of water in that area right after the eruption.
I guess for me, it goes back to the sediment.
It's because of the Spirit Lake.
Will sink. The sediment's not going to sink at different intervals, right? The sediment's all going to sink first.
No, but it does stratify. When you have different soil compositions in water, it does, like even if you have cocoa and coffee in a cup,
I know that
the coffee will sink first, and it will make a stripe in your cup, and the cocoa.
Right, but when we examine those, that's not something that's not accounted for in the way that they're taking their readings on those layers. We can tell the difference between something that was laid down within a short period of time recently, or and we can interpret from those layers all of that different characteristics of the sediment, and see whether it was, like you said, washed away, or whether it was actually, this is where the forest grows. We can tell by looking at that layer and how it's preserved, that it was, whether it was preserved in the location where the forest actually was, I guess.
As opposed to being moved by a bunch of water and redeposited.
Yeah, because there'll be other organisms as well within that, I guess, and like burrows and things like that of burrowing insects, for instance, root systems that show that this was not washed into this location. I guess the main thing I'm thinking of is like the Coalson sandstones and things like that. I guess that comes up a lot in the conversations with the creation circles, right?
Coconino sandstones.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not
Green
mistaken,
Canyon.
that's sand that was deposited by water and then made into a rock because of the minerals that were in the water.
Right, but there's like footprints of terrestrial organisms on that sandstone. So the sandstone was not submerged when it petrified. It wasn't. It was stratified, not in the water. Just like what Amy was saying before when she was reading the comments. I don't remember who it was that commented on that. I think maybe it was Porpoise, but about the different ways to preserve the layers. It doesn't always
If you
have
have
to
a
be,
footprint in the sand, then it's not going to stay in the shape of the foot for very long unless it's buried. Kind of like you did when you were in preschool, you put your handprint. It's only going to keep your print if it's got the minerals to make it cement real quick, which means it has to be wet and mineral rich. Either that or it has to be buried so that footprint gets filled in.
Yeah, it can be buried. You could literally just be another layer of sand put over top of it, and then the pressure of the weight of that sand over millions of years compresses that until it's solid.
Actually,
if you have sand and you have pressure, it doesn't make it a rock. What makes it a rock is minerals and water.
there's a whole thing. The Laetoli footprints are they're from Australopithecus afarensis. It's thought to be, which is Lucy.
Yes.
And it's very well known, and they're in the kind of like a volcanic sediment.
Yes.
That's an example of footprints that exist. And we still have them 4 million years later.
And we can clearly see what they are. We know what they are.
Just to clarify on what I was saying there, that the pressure, what I was saying is the pressure holds the footprints in place so that it doesn't require it to be like immediately like in a flood. It can be buried, and then the pressure holds it in place while over millions of years it's holding it in place with that pressure. Then that's when those minerals seep in. It doesn't have to all be in a big catastrophic damp environment immediately. It can seep in over a long period of time to set those two the sediment layer of the footprint in and the one on top of it.
And so you're thinking that would come from rain as opposed to floodwaters?
And before you
over
answer
billions
that,
of years.
or actually just right now, the sinister porpoise, we're hope we get to tuck you into bed. We want to thank you really for all of the support and love that you have given us. We're sending it right back. And this is the last few minutes. If panel, the floor is still yours if you have a question for each other. But then you'll each get your own individual closings to say whatever you want. But I really do want to thank you because we have been Talk Skeptic today on evolution and creationism. It really has been. It was a great conversation. So I really want to thank our special guests for being with us, our whole panel.
So nice of everybody to come.
I'll try and read any tags, super chats out as we can. This is the last few minutes, but panel, if this is the last few minutes also for any questions that you have for each other.
I would just say, like, we're talking about like geology, and I don't, as far as I know, like none of us have degrees in geology or anything like that. So we're talking like very approximately, and we're talking from a lay perspective. But there are people who spend decades studying geology, and they know this stuff inside and out. They know what flood deposits look like. They see them all the time. They're well acquainted with it. And when they go to Specimen Ridge in Yellowstone, they can clearly look at it and they can tell this is not a flood deposit. That the much more reasonable explanation is that 27 layers of forest ash. You almost might think it was 27 volcanic eruptions, separate events. And then, of course, it would take probably a few hundred years at minimum before trees would start growing again. And then they have trees that are 500, 600, 700 years in these layers through the tree rings. They can tell how old they are. So, even if they only grew for that amount of time and there was another eruption, which they don't happen that fast, but you're still talking in the terms of like tens of thousands of years at minimum, but more likely several million years. But
I also want to just. Well, I feel bad. James, did you have one last point?
Well, I was just going to say, like, at some level, you do have to, trust the experts, and I'm not comfortable like saying that me, who knows very little about geology, I mean, just from a lay perspective, for me to say that all the geologists, all the people in the field, they don't know what they're talking about, and I can substitute my opinion over theirs because I don't think they know what they're talking about. I mean, to me, that's pretty presumptuous. I mean, but
honey, don't allow them to shut your brain off because they are claiming to be professionals.
Right.
You have a brain.
So I don't understand I don't understand tensor calculus. Might as well be in Chinese to me. But there are mathematicians who understand it and they use it to build machines, computers, and they work. So I wouldn't know, like, if Michio Kaku is doing a presentation on black hole physics, he could be putting gibberish on the board. I would have no idea. But for me to say he doesn't know what he's talking about, I mean, it just doesn't seem. Anyway, that's just.
Well, I'm about to give you the ball back to you, Cindi, but I just had an idea that popped. I know that Peter wants to talk with you. I think that we have our resident pagan geologist. We have Beamsy, who may also. But what I would suggest in this conversation with Peter and Beamsy, I have an idea. I would love maybe not only a 2.0 with Rubiks and Bumblebee, maybe the whole panel of good vibes here, but I would love to also Sal. You are always most welcome to have a Cindi and Sal, and maybe we'll have Cindi and Sal, and maybe Beamsy and Peter can figure out if they can work something out. And James and I want. Is there a flavor popcorn? No. But just putting that out there because I said I'd read this, and then we're gonna read Sigma. But Beamsy is saying from the Twitchosphere, the aspect of Specimen Ridge, the tree remains are buried in erupted detritus ash and not mud and sand like you would get at Mount St. Helens with a layer of soil separating the layers. This cannot be done by water in any way. He thinks that
honey, Mount St. Helens wouldn't just have mud and sand. It was a volcano. It would have ash. It would have all of them, and it would sort. Water will sort things.
Well,
Cindi, are you old enough to remember Mount St. Helen, like when it happened?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm
60 this Sunday.
And I have
this Sunday. Happy early birthday!
Late birthday. It was
late birthday. Oh, this last Sunday. Oh,
sorry. I said
as in yesterday or the week before. It's Monday.
October 30th.
That's a milestone. Congratulations.
Thank
you made it
you.
this far.
I'm getting closer to the end of this damn boat ride. Jeez.
So when Mount St. Helens went off, was the atmosphere and the air in the U.S. different? My mother says it was like the sky was yellow and things like that.
Well, I lived in Nebraska.
Oh,
Okay,
you're
that's
pretty
halfway
close then.
across the country, and the ash came all the way,
Mhm.
and you could see it from the satellite.
My dad was in Ohio, and he remembers seeing the
Yeah.
effects of it almost on the other side of the country.
So what James was saying was correct. Okay, we do believe that plate tectonics was happening. Okay, the Bible says the fountains of the great deep broke open. Okay, you can call me crazy, go ahead, but the fountains of the great deep broke open. So we believe that that would be tectonic plates. Okay, today we believe the plates are moving apart, and at the other end of them, they'll be crushing together. And so, when you have plate movement, you've got volcanoes. We believe the flood would have contained a lot of volcanic activity as well as just water and mud. And in fact, if you look at the ring of fire, it's right around the plate lines.
And we have a super chat for $10. Much love to all, including Cindi. I may play fast and loose with the salt. Shh, shh, shh. But that's just because I'm not yet convinced by theist arguments. That's what these conversations are for.
Amen.
Keep it up, y'all.
Amen.
Thanks,
And I'll
Sigma.
say ramen. But, Cindi, I want to thank you so very much. I think we're about to move into our outros. I want to keep on saying thank you for her being here. Sending love to everyone in chat that has been with us. Sending love to our fantastic panel, both our special guest host, like I said, Cindi Lincoln, but our guest panel that came on tonight, both Bumble and Rubiks. They have been fantastic. And we are going to move into our outro statements because we have been Talk Skeptic to me on evolution and creationism. However, the floodgates of Discord will be opening, the description of which is in below with all of our fantastic channel members as well as the Patreon to UC. I also want to give a fantastic shout out to the Speed of Sound who became a Patreon. Thank you so very much, Speed. Sending so much love. Sending love. Honestly, you guys should all be checking out Answers in Atheism. You should be checking out the Weather Report. Scott Duke hangs out there a lot. We should be just kind of rehabilitating Hyena's image ever since The Lion King. It's just been terrible. They've had a terrible PR campaign. So Hyenas, they're amazing. And so is Speed of Sound. Go check out Answers in Atheism. And all right, we're going in sort of like an opposite order. So we are going our outros on evolution creationism on this episode of Talk Skeptic to me with Cindi Lincoln. But Rubiks, you are heading us off because we are moving into our outros. Pew, pew. Jazz
Do it,
hand,
do it.
jazz hand. Ha 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 ha. Woo! Thank you so
Rubiks.
very much
Thanks for being a part of this.
with us, Rubiks. That's very right. It was lovely to have you on and talking skeptic to us on this evolution and creationism with Cindi Lincoln. However, I want to know, what do you have going on? But really, what are your final thoughts on the topic?
Really, my final thoughts, like, I really just want to appreciate Cindi for being willing to talk to us. You know, even though we have very fundamentally different ideas about how the Earth came to be, how we came to be, it's one of those things where if we can have mutual understanding, it can definitely help a lot of, I guess, the hate and the warring that happens between people. That all makes sense.
Yeah.
And we did find some common ground, even though we have differences on how that happened. We did find some common ground, like how the Antarctic used to be very warm. We all agreed on that. So I think,
Booyah.
yeah, so even though we have a lot of words are hard, But I guess like if we could focus more on the similarities than the differences, that humanity would be in a better spot. That it all makes sense.
I agree, honey. I totally agree.
Ramen. Woohoo!
About it.
Group hug.
Thank
Goodbye.
you so very much, Rubiks. It
I'm
was-
bad at words unless I'm being asked.
You're better at them than you say.
Well, that might be because you're a little low on your gender fluid.
Keep drinking the Kool-Aid.
That's right.
Non-toxic too.
Woohoo! That's
And
right.
internationally homegrown, whatever that means.
Well, I always love it when they say organic because I'm like, is it food organic? What's the not organic?
I mean,
I'd say so.
or I've had people ask for organic water before.
Oh, my.
Organic water.
That's right. I've always
I
been
would
a fan.
hope no organic things in your water. That's a
Ever
problem.
I have been
You take a
kind
gallon of
very
water and you
picky.
sell it for $20. Hey, it works.
I have a can of dehydrated water. It's hilarious.
Powdered water. Yeah.
And
You
I
actually say
very
to
much
add to
prefer
a gallon
diet
of water.
You just add
I-
water.
But yes, thank you so very much, Rubiks. And we're going to keep on going down the list. Our next fantastic panelist. Thank you so very much, Bumble Bree, for
Thank you,
joining
Bree.
us on this episode.
Yeah.
To be on Evolution, Creationism, Cindi Lincoln. But what we really want to know, what you got going on in the inner tubes, and what are your final thoughts?
Yes, this has been fun. I love talking about science and cladistics and engaging with different points of view on the way that those that organisms are classified and way that we look at the fossil record and the way that we look at the geological layers. The last part of this conversation, I wish we would have had a geologist on the panel. I wish Beamsy would have come in here. I have been paired up with Beamsy on a what was it with bubblegum gun over here.
Oh, my.
Yeah, that was a good time. So I always like hanging out with Beamsy. So if you do have the Beamsy and Peter thing, if you want me to come on as a moderator, even I'll just to be on the panel, that'd be great. I like to moderate too.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Cindi and Rubik for coming on and chatting with me at least and with each other and making this a fun conversation. And I don't think there's been a dull moment. I have my own channel. It's Hive Science. So we talk about science. We talk about apologetics too. So if you want to, I have videos about Leviathan, Sydney. You can check them out.
You do?
Yeah, I sure do. I love the what they call ancient Near East culture and their histories and
Oh my
I would call it mythologies. I don't want to be offensive though, but with the different creatures and stuff that lived in the ancient times before the flood, especially like the Nephilim and all that. I'm really into that kind of exploration. So we might be friends. I think we are friends now on Facebook, so we can message each other back and forth about these things now, Cindi. So thank you, Amy, for inviting me onto this.
Absolutely.
If you like me, you like what I'm doing out here, subscribe to my channel. I review videos and stuff and articles for the most part, but I always have a good time and I engage with my audience. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Bree. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so very much, Bree. That's right. Go check out both Rubiks' Twitch and Bree's Hive Science YouTube channel right down there. I have seen Bree do awesome debates. I have seen her do fantastic. I'm one of those people just like her that I like insects, and so go check that out as well as her fantastic counter apologetics. Thank you so very much for being on here tonight with us, Rumble Bree. This is Soros. Oh, what? Thank you so very much. And we're actually going to the co-pilot and myself are now going to pilot the ship right before we get Cindi up as our headliner, but we're giving it to the co-pilot, James W. We have been Talk Skeptic to me on Evolution and Creationism with Cindi Lincoln. Lovely. I thought this was a fantastic discussion. Really happy to not only have our the ones that we've had, this one, but hopefully more. But James
More fun,
W, evolution and creationism.
Well, wow. I want to thank Cindi. Last time we had her on the panel, she said we kind of ran her through the gauntlet and she was ready to come back. She wanted more. So she suggested this panel and we were able to get it together. So thank you, Rubiks and Bree, for being willing to give your time and come help us all understand this a little bit better. I think it's not really realistic to imagine that you'll change somebody's mind over the course of one show or one discussion. That rarely ever happens, but at the end of the day, like I think what is like the more reasonable goal, like the more realistic goal would be to just have a better understanding of at least why we believe some of the things we believe, and that we do have reasons for what we believe. It's not necessarily that we just hate God or that we just want to sin. We don't like God telling us what to do. We do actually have reasons why we believe what we believe, and you may not agree with them, but we find them to be compelling. So that's where we're at. But yeah, great time, great discussion. So thanks everybody, and we'll be doing this again, hopefully in the next coming week or so, depending on everybody's availability. So thanks again.
And in fact, what I want to say before we bring on Cindi in for her closing statement is that Talk Skeptic to me is a show. We have 3 open mic shows that are open to anyone who would like to join. We have Skeptic and Ranting, we have Midnight Ranting, and our Skeptic Bible Study all have different levels of open mic interaction where anyone can join. But Talk Skeptic to me is a show where we try to bring on people with expertise, knowledge, or wisdom in these fields and try and illuminate for our audience. And so it was great to have Cindi, Rubiks, and Bumble on with us. But also, if you are a channel member or you are a Patreon, you get access, depending on your tiers, to us, Gizmo and myself, producing more episodes of Talk Skeptic to you, to me, to you, as we will create any subject that you are passionate about and think that you can share that knowledge with the world. We want to get it out there. We want to talk about it. So once again, channel members, Patreons, we will put in all of the elbow grease. All you need to do is show up,
Right.
and we will try to get that goodness out to the world. But speaking of which, oh no, James,
if Ken Hovind wanted to become a Patreon and he wanted to come on
That's
and do
right.
a 6-hour presentation on whale penises, we would have that show because that's what we do for our Patreons.
James, you have to be more discerning than that when you choose your people.
And we will say, it's never a Ken Hovind debate unless you're talking about another animal's genitals. I feel like that's kind of the hallmark.
So, Ken, how many hours a day would you say you spend watching videos of animals having sex? Would that be, do you need one hand or 2 hands to count that up? Or do you need to go down to your feet?
I don't know about Kent, but
I never witnessed it.
Oh, and I just want to say
about it.
Send love out to chat. Depending on tier, no, you could do any subject you want. It's just the amount of time
within reason.
So, yes, as in like it starts I think at like a 45-minute conversation, and they go all the way up to 33-hour conversations. But for people that we just find, we also are open to people with expertise. We wanted to get Cindi on. We wanted to get. I know that Bumble and Rubiks have expertise in this field. I know that Beamsy is a geologist, and so we want to figure out how to make everyone win. Just to tell you what my morality is on this subject, as someone into game design and development, I am against loot boxes. I am against pay to play. I am against any sort of dynamic that gives people an advantage through money. I do think that there are ways that designers that can make it so that everyone wins. So, for example, our Q&A show is for our Patreons and channel members and super channers to send in questions. However, subscribers and viewers, they're all invited and we'll talk with everybody. We want everyone to get everything. And so we want to find ways for everybody to win. So sending love out there, no topic, as long as it doesn't break the TOS. It's the only gods that we pray to here. Then we'll talk about whatever subject. But event Kent Hovind has this in his background of all his animal. Oh my, I can't even imagine, BMZ, what is in a Kent Hovind background check. I imagine mostly it's just pictures of this though. But hey, what is love, baby? Don't hurt anyone that Kent Hovind comes in contact with.
I feel like we need to superimpose Kent Hovind on that John Travolta gif.
Oh my. Yes.
Who's kind of just looking around.
Well, don't give her any more ideas. Bree already has to do a whole.
I would say that we need more memes, more Rule 34 of whatever kind of apologists that we can get on, because that would just drive them crazy. But enough of my shenanigans. Let's get our headliner on. Let's get the person
Evil shenanigans.
that. But she has been so generous with us to come on and give us her time. Cindi Lincoln, thank you so very much. We have been Talk Skeptic to Me on evolution and creationism with you and our fantastic panel. Thank you so very much. I want to remind everyone of Cindi Lincoln's channel in the description below. It's in chat, her GoFundMe, everything that she is doing. And I want to just give you one more chance, as much time as you would like, Cindi. Where can people find you and evolution and creationism? What are your final thoughts?
Thank you for letting me share my perspective, even though it's different than yours. And I just like what Rubiks was saying about I'd rather it not divide us. And on my channel, I have several different playlists. A lot of them are about witnesses against Kent Hovind, evidences for what I'm saying, because some people think I'm lying and making stuff up. And I have a ton of evidence. But I have a whole playlist just on original science videos that I've done that I'm really proud of, and I think they're really good. So if you want to see some of my science PowerPoints made into videos, I'd love it if you comment on that.
I work at a science museum, so that'd be interesting to see.
Well, I have a playlist of my Science Center tours as well, that I did years ago, but the playlist of original science videos are recent. But even though some of the science in my Science Center tour, I'm still thinking about what Dapper told me, I'm still really, really proud of a lot of it. So, yeah, open for your ideas. I can be reached on Messenger if anybody wants to reach me, Facebook Messenger. And again, thanks for allowing me into your little circle, even though, we have different beliefs. Just thanks for listening and considering.
Well, thank you for being willing to come and answer questions. That's a lot. That counts for a lot.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so very much, Cindi. I cannot thank you enough. I hope we keep on having great conversations. You are more than welcome to come on as much as you want. We couldn't support your message as much. I hope you get Kent. And we're having some.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're just
We're
happy if we
having
could get
some fun now.
we're happy if we could get a theist on here who is a round earther. That's like the pool
That's the new thing.
that we fish in. We run
That
into a
is
lot
just
of
weird.
Wait, you mean
flat
it's
earthers.
not donut shaped?
Dun dun dun. That
I
Homer
don't
Simpson.
understand how you can look in the sky and see a bunch of round planets and not think that we're round.
I
They
agree.
don't think they just think they're lights.
I'm being facetious with that argument.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's.
But I have to tell you the truth. I do have friends that are round earthers flat earthers, and
Oh
I
boy.
try and be respectful of them as well.
Yeah.
The
I
fact that Kent Hovind thinks they're stupid says a lot about flat earthers. I feel
Oh
like.
boy.
I just like to focus on the content of their character.
And
I don't think they're all. I wouldn't say they're all stupid. I think a lot of them have just been given some bad information, and they've kind of fallen down that rabbit hole, and hopefully they'll find their way out.
And all right, I'm sending so much love. I want to thank our entire panel. I want to thank everyone in chat, but I want to hope that you all had a fantastic time on this episode of Talk Skeptic to Me, Evolution and Creationism with Cindi Lincoln, where tonight we had a fantastic panel with Bumble Bree and Rubiks to talk with us and Cindi Lincoln about evolution and creationism. However, I do want to thank my co-host, James W., along with our special guest host, Cindi Lincoln, and our fantastic panel,
Thanks, everybody.
Rubiks and Bumble Bree, as well as all the people in chat, our awesome mods who make this stream so great, and lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If
Thanks
you
so much,
enjoy
guys.
the show, please don't forget to like, follow on Twitch, or subscribe on YouTube. Then you gain access to that bell icon, which will send you reminders to see our premieres, or join our live streams like this one. Or hey, why not leave a comment once the video's
Why
done?
not?
You can also leave a super thanks, and we'll read it back as thanks on the next episode. After the show, the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server will be opening up, the link of which is in the description below, along with our fantastic channel members. Though the best way to help us make even more content and unlock some unique perks is by checking out our Patreon and becoming a supporter at patreon.com/abnewman. I am AB Newman, and we'll see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. And I just
everybody.
realized I have to upload the new one.
Oh boy.
Jazz hands! On the next episode of Jazz, we're gonna go like this. It's uploading. Thank you, internet gods. Do.
On dial-up.
Do. Sending love to X Music and Sigma and Big Mad Mama, James Wolfe, and Time Teacher Computer, Rachel Holland, Rubiks and Bree and Randolph and Marshall and Sage, Ohio, and everyone out there, because we have
Thanks,
been
guys.
Talk Skeptic to Me, and like I said, we'll see you all on the next adventure of Skeptic Ball Z. Good.
Thanks.